Rimuru Tempest, a salaryman who got reincarnated as an ordinary slime in a cave. However, in this cave he found a sealed dragon, Veldora, who gave him divine protection in return that he frees him in the future. Now with divine protection, he becomes useful, unlike yourself, and grows to establish a village while gaining overpowered skills. However, as time flows and troubles awaits him, he is forced to make harsh decisions, even if that means he has to Chris Breezy, a evil demon lord. Now for the topic, if Rimuru is a girl or a boy, I honestly have no idea, so we're gonna go with his past life. But anyways, the anime begins in a city under attack by planes, and a girl desperately running for shelter with her mother. Suddenly, the mother disappears in a fiery blaze, leaving the kid in tears. Just when you thought things couldn't get more heated, a flaming tornado whisks the girl away like she's auditioning for a fireworks show. Fast forward to present day Tokyo. Meet Satoru Mikami, a 37-year-old bachelor who's waited so long for love that even his microwave has given up on him. He's got a decent life, but there's one thing missing: a girlfriend. Not having one doesn't really bother him though. As Satoru strolls down the street, lost in thought about his loveless life, his buddy Temura pops up, eager to introduce Satoru to his new flame. Enter Miho, Temura's girlfriend. She's seen Satoru around before but never talked to him until now. Satoru, being the hilarious guy he is, decides to mess with Miho by claiming he knows all about her celebrity status due to some juicy rumors. Miho's face turns as red as a tomato on a hot summer's day, but don't worry, Temura reassures her that Satoru's just cracking jokes. As they head out for a meal at Satoru's favorite restaurant, they suddenly hear a commotion. A wild man wielding a dagger appears out of nowhere and charges at Temura. Satoru, in a daring act of bravery, shoves Temura aside and takes a dagger to the back. The attacker makes a run for it, leaving Satoru confused and in pain. Temura calls for an ambulance, and Satoru's thinking, great, I finally get some action, and it's a dagger in the back. While bleeding and pondering his life choices, Satoru reaches out to Temura with his blood-stained hand and delivers his last request: wipe the hard drive on his computer at home. Temura, who wanted to impress Satoru with Miho, is now in tears, and Satoru, in his final moments, advises Temura to take good care of her. He never imagined he'd die a virgin, but he's determined that if he's reborn, he'll be a real Casanova, making up for lost time. Satoru's life flashes before his eyes, and he thinks about how close he was to hitting that big 4-0 as a virgin. In his next life, he might even become a legendary sage. As Satoru closes his eyes and prepares to meet the great beyond, he gains consciousness once more, but things have taken a strange twist. Satoru awakens in a peculiar world as a slime. Yes, you read that right, a slime. He starts bouncing around, realizing that his slime body is pretty handy. He doesn't even need to eat or sleep. But something's up, he hasn't pooped yet. As he continues his slimy escapades, a mysterious voice informs him that all the stuff he's dissolving is stored in his unique stomach. He can analyze and acquire skills from the objects he ingests, and he even learns to make healing potions from the plants he dissolves. Handy, right? Satoru gets so excited that he gobbles up some fancy stones, but his slimy enthusiasm gets him into a lake. No worries, though, he absorbs the water and unlocks a new skill, water pressure propulsion. Now he's not just any slime, he's a high-speed, hydro-powered slime. As he zooms around, he smacks into an invisible wall, but no pain here, his regeneration skill has him covered. Then, he hears a mysterious voice again. This time, a weird creature offers him a deal, eyes in exchange for not being scared after seeing him and promising to visit later. Satoru agrees, and this strange dragon creature tells him how to unlock his secret skill of magic sense. Suddenly, Satoru sees everything, including the dragon, who introduces himself as Storm Dragon Veldora, one of only 4 true dragons in this world. Apparently, slimes with self-awareness are as rare as finding a unicorn in your backyard. Speaking of that time I got reincarnated as a slime, let me introduce you to a fantastic game called AFK Arena, which Tenshira's main protagonist, Rimuru Tempest, along with our beloved Shuna, are set to journey to the continent of Vesperia, joining the ranks of heroes in AFK Arena. Their new adventure will unfold in the themed Voyage of Wonder, stone-freed water flows. AFK Arena has meticulously recreated the anime duo in its game art, gameplay, and an engaging trailer. Furthermore, the team at Lilith Games collaborated with the original Japanese voice actors to bring authenticity to the characters' voices. Rimuru, with his devastating spells as an intellectual mage, and Shuna, the ever-reliable guardian with her strategic support skills, bring unique abilities to the battlefield. Just like in the anime, Rimuru wields his equal naming ability to bestow names and empower allies. His impressive regenerative powers are also faithfully reproduced, enabling him to recover from near defeat. Additionally, players will witness Rimuru's iconic slime form emerge whenever he vanquishes enemies. AFK Arena currently has 40 million downloads with a variety of game modes to choose from, including PvE story, dungeons, team bosses, the King's Tower, and the crucial arena where you can challenge other players online. AFK Arena offers endless entertainment. One of the best features is that even when you're not actively playing, your characters continue to grow stronger over time. If you're interested in the That Time I Got Reincarnated as a slime collaboration in AFK Arena and want to download it, I'll make it easy for you by providing the game link in the description below. Satoru spills the beans about his reincarnation tale to Veldora, who mentions that people usually arrive in this magical world as otherworlders, gaining special abilities in the process. As for Veldora, he was sealed because of a little mishap involving a town and a barbecue gone wrong. A hero with divine protection sealed him in this cave for 3 centuries. Satoru and Veldora become unlikely friends, and Satoru realizes that life has a funny way of surprising you, even if it involves becoming a slime in a magical world. Meanwhile, Tamura faithfully wipes the data on Satoru's computer as instructed, unknowingly contributing to the weirdest adventure ever. Satoru's heart goes out to the poor dragon, stuck in that cave for a staggering 300 years. The dragon desperately asks Satoru if there's any way to get him out before his magic runs out. It turns out, the dragon is like a leaky balloon, slowly losing its magicules. No wonder the cave is chock full of magical herbs and ores, it's like a mystical Costco in there. Satoru tries his predator skill to absorb the imprisonment spell, but alas, no luck. The voice in Satoru's head suggests that if he analyzes the unlimited imprisonment from both inside and out, he might crack the code. The catch? The dragon's skills are locked up tighter than a bank vault. But Satoru has an idea. What if the dragon just feeds him the data? It would take some time, but Satoru figures he might as well multitask while in this magical world. Plus, he's itching to find other people from his world. So, he proposes to the dragon, "How about you hop in my stomach, and together we'll unlock this prison like a dynamic duo." The dragon finds this proposal absolutely hilarious and agrees. Satoru is puzzled by the dragon's hearty laughter, but hey, teamwork makes the dream work. Before the dragon becomes one with Satoru's digestive system, they decide to give each other names. Satoru christens the dragon Tempest, and the dragon dubs Satoru Rimuru. These names aren't just for show, they're engraved on their souls. With the formalities out of the way, Rimuru swallows both the imprisonment spell and Tempest. The cave where Veldora had been trapped is located in the Great Forest of Jura, a region with several neighboring countries. In one of these countries, the Kingdom of Belmond, Minister Baron Dryad has some pressing questions. He consults Guildmaster Fuse about the mysterious disappearance of Veldora, the Storm Dragon. Fuse knows about the dragon and promises to investigate personally, making sure to keep an eye on the Great Forest of Jura and the other kingdoms. Little does Rimuru know, his actions are setting off a chain reaction of chaos in the surrounding nations. Meanwhile, Rimuru explores the cave for an exit, spending days munching on herbs and ores and gaining new skills left and right. He now has water manipulation skills, which he combines with his water pressure propulsion and water movement abilities to become a bona fide waterbender. Rimuru also encounters a black serpent and gains a poisonous breath skill, making his breath fresh in more ways than one. He even runs into an Armorosaurus, defeats it, and acquires body armor. It's like he's collecting skills like trading cards. As weeks pass in his cave adventures, Rimuru stumbles upon a wooden door. It magically opens, revealing 3 adventurers on the other side. Rimuru eavesdrops on their conversation thanks to his nifty magic sense, and he realizes these are the first humans he's seen in this world. One of the adventurers uses a stealth art to make everyone invisible, leaving Rimuru flabbergasted. Emerging from the cave, the adventurers sense something amiss but shrug it off. Rimuru realizes he has a lot of stories to concoct for Veldora when they reunite, thinking about all the bizarre encounters he's had so far. Just as he ponders Veldora's reaction to his tales, a group of tiny goblins appears before him, armed to the teeth. The goblins are trembling in fear, and one of them tentatively calls Rimuru a strong one. Rimuru decides to assert his dominance and introduces himself with a booming voice, inadvertently scaring the goblins to their knees. They beg him to stop, and Rimuru, feeling a bit like a rock star, listens to their tale. The goblins sensed a powerful monster and ventured into the forest to investigate. With Rimuru's immense power, they request his assistance. Rimuru obliges and is escorted to the goblin village, where he meets the elder. As it turns out, the goblin's god had disappeared a month ago, and that god is none other than Veldora. Without Veldora's protection, the goblins have been under attack by other monsters, and they implore Rimuru for help. Rimuru maintains his modesty, even though his power is radiating like a neon sign. Eventually, he agrees to help the goblins, who have faced tragedy with the loss of 100 direwolves and the elder's son. In exchange for his protection, the goblins pledge their loyalty to him. As they discuss their situation, the direwolves begin to howl, sending shivers down the goblins' spines. Rimuru steps up as their newfound hope, and just like that, he becomes the goblin leader. After Rimuru swallowed Veldora, they embarked on the arduous journey of analyzing the seal together, with the ultimate goal of setting Veldora free. But Rimuru's adventures didn't stop there. As he emerged from the cave, he encountered a group of goblins in dire need of assistance. These goblins were beaten down and scrawny, clearly no match for the direwolves threatening their village. Rimuru, being the compassionate slime he is, tried to lift the spirits of these downtrodden goblins. He encouraged them with words of hope and unity. However, before he could fully motivate them, he decided to visit the wounded goblins in one of the huts. What he saw was a goblin with deep wounds in dire need of medical attention. Rimuru, not one to stand by idly, absorbed one of the wounded goblins and promptly threw it away, completely healed. The goblin looked puzzled for a moment, then realized it felt better than ever. Rimuru repeated this miraculous act for all the wounded goblins, tossing potions from his body like they were party favors. The goblins were now not only healed but also astounded. Their elder couldn't believe his eyes as he witnessed Rimuru's extraordinary healing abilities. He immediately ordered the goblins to start building a fence and fortifying their village against the impending direwolf attack. Speaking of the direwolves, they weren't about to let the goblins off easy. Led by their pack leader, they launched an attack on the village, howling their intentions. When they reached the village, they were met with a flimsy-looking fence. The pack leader, brimming with arrogance, ordered his pack to trample the fence and shed goblin blood. As the wolves charged, many of them met their doom thanks to a cleverly placed steel thread trap set up by Rimuru. The pack leader, however, wasn't deterred. He charged at Rimuru, furious at the mere sight of a slime giving orders. But Rimuru had a few tricks up his metaphorical sleeve. The leader found himself trapped by sticky threads and promptly lost his head to Rimuru's water blade. Rimuru, now a wolf thanks to his mimic ability, tried to warn the pack to submit or face dire consequences. Unfortunately, the pack couldn't understand him, so Rimuru absorbed the deceased leader, gaining his skills, including the ability to communicate through thoughts, heightened senses of smell, and a menacing aura. Transformed into a wolf, Rimuru decided to assert his newfound authority. The rest of the pack wisely yielded to Rimuru's leadership. The battle was over, but now Rimuru had to deal with a goblin and wolf alliance. He paired them up and ordered them to work together, ensuring peace in his budding community. Naming was Rimuru's secret weapon. By giving names to just a few, he inadvertently raised the rank of all monsters, causing them to evolve. The goblins and wolves weren't scrawny anymore, they were a force to be reckoned with. Even the elder, Rigurd, had transformed into a muscle-bound powerhouse. Rimuru, realizing the potential of naming, declared Rigurd as the Goblin Lord and laid down some laws for the community to follow. But there were still problems to solve. Houses and clothes were on the top of the list. Rigurd suggested seeking the help of dwarves, who were renowned for their craftsmanship. With a new mission in mind, Rimuru set off on a journey towards the kingdom of dwarves, leaving behind a community of goblins and wolves ready to take on the world. Following the Emiled River north, Rimuru, accompanied by Ranga, a few other wolves, and goblins, embarked on their journey towards Dwargon, the kingdom of dwarves. Alongside them were Rigger, two other goblins, and Gopta, their trusty guide who had visited Dwargon before. As they settled in their camp one evening, Rigger revealed that he had been named by a passing demon named Lord Jelmud, an officer in the Demon Lord's army. This revelation piqued Rimuru's interest in the complex world of demon lords and heroes, but he had one clear goal: to avoid getting tangled up with either of them. Rimuru turned to Ranga and asked if he held any grudge for Rimuru's role in his father's demise. However, Ranga's loyalty was unwavering, and he declared his gratitude to Rimuru alone. Their destination was the armed nation of Dwargon, a city beautifully constructed within a modified natural cave system. It was home to various races, including dwarves, humans, and even elves. The dwarf king, Gazel Dwargo, was renowned as the hero king. As Gobda provided more information about Dwargo, Rimuru couldn't help but imagine the beauty of elves. Dwargo was a neutral trade center, and its military might was unparalleled. Fighting within the kingdom was strictly prohibited, as the Dwargo army had been undefeated for 1,000 years. Anyone who provoked them was deemed a dumb. After a 3-day journey, they finally reached Dwargon, thanks to Ranga and his fellow wolves. Rimuru, still daydreaming about beautiful elves, decided to take Gobta with him while instructing the others to remain outside to avoid drawing attention. However, even at the entrance gate, a long line awaited them. As they stood in line, two troublemakers set their sights on Gobta, aiming to capture Rimuru due to his rarity as a talking slime. Rimuru ordered Gobta to close his eyes and ears and stepped forward to handle the thugs. Transforming into a tempest wolf, Rimuru attempted to scare them off. But the thugs weren't so easily dissuaded and called for backup. They began attacking Rimuru, whose slimy body proved impervious to their blows. In a final attempt, Rimuru unleashed his menace attack, causing chaos and fear. 16 people fled, 68 were left bewildered, 92 fainted, and 34 had less control over their bladders. Amidst the chaos, Rimuru and Gobta were captured by the head of security, Kaido. Rimuru apologized for the trouble they caused, but before Kaido could release them, his subordinate informed him of an Amaterasu in the mine, which posed a significant threat to the miners. The miners were gravely injured, and Kaido lacked the necessary magic potion to heal them. Rimuru offered Kaido his own healing potion, which saved the miners' lives. Grateful for Rimuru's assistance, Kaido released them, treated them to a meal, and shared his reason for being in Dwargon. The next day, accompanied by Kaido, Rimuru ventured into the city. Kaido introduced him to skilled blacksmiths, including his own brother, Kaijen Blacksmith. 3 miners who had been saved by Rimuru's healing potion also joined them, and they shared their tale of Rimuru's heroics with Kaijen. Kaijen apologized for not being able to help more, as he was currently swamped with crafting 20 longswords for Minister Vesta. These swords needed to be delivered by the end of the week, and he had only managed to complete one due to a shortage of materials. Kaijen had initially declined the order but was manipulated into accepting it through gaslighting. Kaijen was also short on magic ore, which was what the miners had been attempting to extract before the trouble occurred. If he failed to deliver the swords, his blacksmithing license would be revoked. Rimuru came to the rescue, throwing up the much-needed magic ore, impressing Kaijen with its purity. In gratitude for Rimuru's help with mending the goblins' clothing and homes, Kaijen got to work on his sword crafting. Rimuru requested one of the completed swords, absorbed it, and asked the sage voice to create duplicates. Moments later, Rimuru astonished everyone by producing 20 identical longswords. Kaijen and the others decided to throw a party for Rimuru with the butterflies of the night. Initially hesitant, Rimuru couldn't resist the allure when he heard the word elves. Entering the pub, he was warmly welcomed by a group of beautiful elves, who immediately began hugging him, much to Rimuru's delight. The party had officially begun. Continuing with the story, we find Rimuru enjoying a pleasant time at the bar, resting comfortably in the lap of an elf under the shade of her oppai, while Gobta remains blissfully unaware, sound asleep in jail. One of the elves starts making gestures, which Rimuru misinterprets as some sort of erotic signals. He's momentarily perplexed, but when he notices a glass globe, it dawns on him that she's attempting to perform fortune-telling. The elf offers to reveal Rimuru's life partner, and although Rimuru doesn't have any specific inquiries in mind, he agrees to the playful suggestion. The elf begins to cast the spell, first jokingly and then with a more serious intent. She gazes into the glass globe and envisions a pretty girl among other details. As they discuss the vision, Minister Vesta unexpectedly appears, mocking Kaijen for wasting time with such frivolous activities. Rimuru starts pondering whether Vesta gave Kaijen an impossible task on purpose and wonders about the relationship between the two. Vesta redirects his attention toward Rimuru, insulting him as a lowly monster and berating Kaijen for bringing it into a high-class establishment. The elf bartender tries to calm Vesta down with a drink, but Vesta escalates things by pouring a jug of wine onto Rimuru, who had been resting comfortably in the elf's lap. Rimuru manages to keep his temper in check, considering Vesta's position as minister. However, Kaijen steps in, delivering a surprise punch to Vesta, who didn't see it coming. Rimuru cheers Kaijen on, suggesting he goes for the face instead of the body. Kaijen lands another punch, sending Vesta sprawling to the floor. Rimuru inquires if hitting the minister would cause problems, but Kaijen responds by asking Rimuru if he'd accept him as his artisan. Rimuru happily agrees. Kaido intervenes and takes Rimuru and Kaijen into custody until their trial. Kaijen apologizes to everyone for dragging them into his troubles. Rimuru questions Kaijen about Vesta's grudge against him, learning that Kaijen used to serve Gazel Dwargo as the captain of one of the 7 orders of royal knights, while Vesta was his subordinate. Vesta, being from a noble family, had disdain for Kaijen's peasant origins and unjustly placed blame on him for a major project failure with false testimonies. Kaijen eventually resigned and became a blacksmith, and Vesta took every opportunity to ruin his life. Kaijen and his subordinates agree to become artisans under Rimuru. The next day, the trial begins with King Gazel Dwargo presiding. The king makes a grand entrance, exuding a strong presence that leaves Rimuru genuinely impressed. The trial commences with the lawyer blaming Kaijen and his group. After hearing the arguments, the trial concludes with Kaijen and his subordinates sentenced to a decade of hard labor in the mines. When offered the chance to return as captain of the Night Order, Kaijen refuses, having already pledged his loyalty to a new master. This decision angers the king, who orders Kaijen to leave his sight and punishes the gang with exile. The king appears somewhat saddened by the outcome. After the court session ends, the king instructs Vesta to speak the truth, revealing that he had known all along about Vesta's lies. Despite Vesta's intentions to be useful, the king is also upset with him for severing their connection with Rimuru, who had provided them with a 100% effective healing potion, an impossibility for the dwarves to replicate. The king leaves the court while Vesta breaks down in tears, reflecting on the first time he saw Gazel Dwargo. Vesta pleads for forgiveness from the king, but the king commands him never to show his face again. Kaido bids farewell to Kaijen and his group before they go into exile. Despite the chaos, Rimuru successfully achieves his initial goal of bringing skilled artisans to the goblin village. As the story unfolds, Dwargo orders a spy to keep an eye on the slime, recognizing that Rimuru is the true monster, much like the storm dragon Veldora. In the Free Union Guild of the Blue Moon Kingdom, Fuse reviews reports that indicate no signs of the Eastern Empire attempting to cross the Great Forest of Jura. These reports are presented by Cavil, Iren, and Gaido, adventurers whom Rimuru encountered when leaving the cave. Fuse orders them to investigate the forest after they return from their 3-day vacation. He knows that monsters will likely be unusually active following Veldora's disappearance. As they set out, the adventurers express frustration at their guildmaster for assigning them challenging tasks. Suddenly, a masked warrior woman named Shizu appears and inquires if they were discussing the Jura forest. She requests to accompany them on their investigation, and Iren agrees. Shizu introduces herself to the group, and Rimuru's presence is revealed. Rimuru transforms into a Tempest Wolf to train Ranga, his loyal companion. A few weeks have passed since Rimuru's return to the goblin village with the dwarves. The goblins watch Kaijen, the skilled blacksmith, closely as he works. With the dwarves' help, they aim to improve and fortify the goblin village to ensure peace and prosperity. Rimuru has also named all 500 of the new goblins who sought shelter in the village after hearing about Rimuru's heroics against the wolves. Rigard, promoted from Goblin Lord to Goblin King, reports to Rimuru about some humans discovered in the forest. These humans are from a nation seeking to expand its dominion. The adventurers, meanwhile, are fleeing from a giant ant that Cavil inadvertently provoked. Shizu intervenes, demonstrating her powerful fire sword abilities to defeat the ants. Afterward, a bolt of black lightning reduces the last ant to dust, revealing Rimuru's presence. Rimuru returns Shizu's mask, recognizing her as the same girl shown to him by the elf as his potential partner. Rimuru leads the adventurers to the goblin village, where they express gratitude for saving them from monsters and providing food. Cavil introduces their group, and Shizu discusses their plans to investigate Veldora's disappearance. They seek Rimuru's permission to conduct their investigation and are offered a night's stay in the goblin village. In the evening, Rimuru finds Shizu alone, watching the sunset. He asks if she is also from Japan, and she confirms. Rimuru then opens up and shares his entire story with Shizu. She holds Rimuru in her arms, which makes him feel shy and blush. During this moment, Rimuru uses thought communication to show Shizu his memories, and she enjoys the view. However, Shizu suddenly feels weak and falls to her knees. Kaijen appears, seeking advice about the location of a new house, as Shizu recalls the time when she was summoned during World War II, and her body was offered to the fire demon Ifrit. As Shizu struggled with the memories of her past, she recalled the time when she was summoned by Demon Lord Leon. During their encounter, the great sorcerer Koenig had also appeared to challenge Lord Leon. Leon controlled Shizu and used her powers to reduce Koenig to ashes. However, Shizu had made a friend during her time as a summoning, a girl of the same age. The girl had found a dog and brought it into the castle, where animals were forbidden. The dog barked at Leon, causing Shizu's body to react uncontrollably, and she inadvertently burned the dog and the girl. This incident left Shizu confused and devastated, as she cried over taking someone's life. Shizu's nightmares were haunting her, and she woke up with her body trembling, struggling to control her powers. She decided to leave the goblin village, explaining to Rimuru that she wanted to find the man who had summoned her. The adventurers also chose to depart. However, as Shizu was leaving the village, her body suddenly transformed into her flame form. Cavil recognized her as Shizu Izawa, the Conqueror of Flames, and Iren had heard of her as a hero from the guild 50 years ago. Rimuru ordered Rigard to evacuate the village and revealed that he had a plan. The fire spirit of Ifrit was released, and Ifrit began attacking the village, summoning little demons that set everything ablaze. Cavil decided to stay and fight alongside Rimuru. As Rimuru attempted to reason with Ifrit, Ifrit launched an attack at him. Rimuru dodged and retaliated with his water blade, but it evaporated upon contact with Ifrit. The demons attempted to attack Rimuru, but Iren used her magic to distract them. Rimuru summoned Ranga and instructed him to focus on evading attacks while he handled the demons. Rimuru needed to deal with the demons first before confronting Ifrit. He asked the sage voice if he could expel all the water in his belly at once. The voice confirmed that it was possible, but warned that it would cause a steam explosion when the water came into contact with a salamander, potentially causing widespread destruction. Rimuru observed that Iren's magic attacks were effective against the salamanders. He ordered her to continue her assault, and he analyzed her attacks to devise a strategy. Rimuru then used his ice shotgun to attack the salamanders. The remaining salamander resorted to self-destruction in a desperate attempt to harm the adventurers. Rimuru ordered Ranga to evacuate the adventurers to safety while he confronted Ifrit. Rimuru challenged Ifrit, who responded by summoning identical images of himself. Rimuru quickly dispatched the duplicates using his ice shotgun. Suddenly, a magic circle appeared beneath Rimuru, and Ifrit launched a powerful attack called Flare Circle. Although Rimuru appeared to have been consumed by the flames, he felt no pain or burning because his unique abilities nullified fire damage. Everything was going according to Rimuru's plan. Ifrit, thinking that Rimuru had been defeated, began to retreat. However, as he stepped back, Rimuru ensnared him in steel threads. Rimuru revealed to Ifrit that he had underestimated him, but not as much as Ifrit had underestimated Rimuru. With that, Rimuru absorbed Ifrit using his predator skill, and Ifrit found himself within Rimuru's belly, where he encountered Veldora. Veldora warned Ifrit not to engage in battle with Rimuru due to their sworn friendship, as Ifrit realized that he was no match for Rimuru. Shizu expressed her gratitude to Rimuru for helping her cope with the guilt and pain she had carried for so long, especially after unintentionally causing the death of her friend. She recounted her journey and explained how she had been possessed by Ifrit after her summoning, serving as the Demon Lord's closest aide until the hero confronted her. During a battle between the hero and the Demon Lord, Shizu found herself abandoned by her master, who fled his castle, leaving her behind as the rear guard. The hero defeated Shizu and took her in, asking about her loyalty to the Demon Lord. Shizu confessed her past and cried in the hero's arms. In response, the hero provided Shizu with a mask that boosted her magic resistance and suppressed the influence of Ifrit within her. She accompanied the hero on various adventures, using her abilities to help people and earning her title as the Conqueror of Flames. However, the hero eventually disappeared, leaving Shizu behind. She continued her journey, but as she aged, it became increasingly challenging for her to control Ifrit. She eventually retired and became a school teacher in the kingdom of Ingracia, teaching children from other worlds. Despite some of her students leaving to pursue their own paths, one of them became the Grandmaster responsible for establishing guilds in various countries. As time passed, Shizu found it more difficult to restrain Ifrit's power, leading her to embark on a journey to find the man who had originally summoned her. Shizu asked Rimuru for a favor before her passing, to absorb her into his being so she could find peace away from this world. Her final wish was for Rimuru to locate the Demon Lord and persuade him to return the children who had been summoned to this world and acknowledge Shizu's existence. Rimuru agreed to fulfill Shizu's last wish, and she was peacefully absorbed into him. The adventurers, Cavil, Iren, and Gaido, entered the room to find that Rimuru had completely transformed into a human, capable of mimicking Shizu's appearance. Rimuru apologized for not consulting with them earlier but explained that it was the only way to provide a proper burial for Shizu. Iren expressed her desire to bid a final farewell to Shizu, and after they paid their respects, the adventurers left the village, thanking Rimuru for everything. They later encountered Kaijen and the three dwarf brothers, who were already famous worldwide. After exchanging greetings, the adventurers departed, leaving behind the girl who had once lost everything to flames but had gained the power of fire during her travels, ultimately succumbing to its consuming nature. Rimuru created a grave for Shizu, but he knew that before he could seek vengeance against the demon Leon Cromwell, who had made Shizu cry, he needed to gather more information. As the story unfolded, Rimuru reflected on his extraordinary journey from an ordinary life, getting reincarnated as a slime, befriending a storm dragon, and forming a deep connection with a human woman named Shizu. Meanwhile, in a barren land, an orc named Geld fell unconscious due to hunger and thirst. An elf named Jelmut approached Geld and offered him food and a new name, designating him as the one who would take control of the great forest of Jura and become the orc disaster. The development of the goblin village was progressing well. With the help of Kaijen and the dwarves, they had manufactured clothes and tools for building more houses. Additionally, the goblin lords under Rigard had been working on establishing a governance system for the village. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, Rimuru felt there was something important he needed to do. He entered a house when no one was watching and repaired Shizu's broken mask, deciding to keep it as a memento of her. Rimuru then transformed into Shizu to test the hearing, vision, and speaking capabilities of his human form. He also inquired if he could utilize Ifrit's skills. The Great Sage confirmed that all of Ifrit's skills had been analyzed. Rimuru used his body double technique to create a copy of himself and began analyzing it. During this self-discovery, Rimuru realized that he had no gender in his human form, just as he had none as a slime. He also discovered that he could control the age of his summoned form. While walking around the village, Rimuru suddenly realized that he could now taste food and decided to join the goblins for a feast prepared by Rigard. During this time, he noticed Rigurd and a group of goblins preparing to hunt for a great deer, which Rimuru approved of. However, Ranga interrupted with a thought communication, informing Rimuru that they were being attacked by some orcs. Rimuru rushed to the scene to find Gobta injured. He healed Gobta with a magic potion, and Ranga was engaged in a battle with 2 orcs. Rigurd was fighting an orc lady who had put some goblins to sleep with her magic. Rimuru called back Ranga and Rigurd to assess the situation. The orcs were unlike any Rimuru had encountered in video games. They wore armor and wielded katanas, and there were 6 of them. Rimuru attempted to reason with them, but the orcs were enraged due to the earlier pig attack and refused to listen. They also realized that Rimuru was concealing his true identity. With no other option, Rimuru decided to fight the orcs. He instructed Ranga to take care of the pink-haired orc lady who had used magic to put the goblins to sleep. Rimuru engaged the other 5 orcs in battle, using various skills and tactics to incapacitate them. During the battle, Rimuru's arm was severed, but he calmly reattached it, shocking the orcs. When he finally unmasked himself, revealing the intimidating black flames, the orcs grew worried. Rimuru used this display of power to establish his dominance. As Rimuru attempted to explain the situation, the old orc, who had been observing, cut off Rimuru's arm to test his regeneration abilities. The orc prince, however, decided to continue the fight, driven by his pride as the next leader of the ogre clan. Rimuru showed off his strength, causing the princess ogre to intervene and persuade the prince to cease the fight. The princess ogre believed that Rimuru was not the evil magician who had attacked the ogre clan with an army of pigs, slaying many ogres. Rimuru revealed his true form and provided the mask he had repaired as evidence. The prince ogre apologized for misunderstanding Rimuru and the goblins, and Rimuru invited them to share their story. As Rimuru asked for their names, the prince ogre explained that ogres didn't typically have names. They all headed back to the goblin village, where ogres and goblins reconciled and began to learn more about each other. As the goblins served the feast they had prepared, they were concerned about whether Rimuru would enjoy the food. For Rimuru, this was the first time he had tasted food in a long while, as he had grown used to being tasteless as a slime. Fortunately, Rimuru found the food to his liking, much to the relief of the goblin's cook. The ogres were also partaking in the feast, enjoying the meal alongside their new allies. Kaijen was baffled when the princess informed him that they had been attacked by orcs, as ogres were vastly stronger than orcs, and such an attack seemed unthinkable. The orcs had attacked their village out of nowhere, and they had come well armed and armored. There was a masked magician among them, which indicated that the orcs might be aligned with one of the demon lords. The prince ogre explained that only 3 of his 6 brothers had managed to escape the orc attack. Rimuru joined the conversation and asked the prince about their plans, whether they intended to rebuild their village or relocate it to a safer area. The prince's decision would determine the fate of his comrades. After some contemplation, the prince decided that they would seek revenge against the orcs once they were strong enough. Rimuru offered his help, proposing to make the ogres his subordinates, providing them with food, shelter, and clothing in exchange for their cooperation. The goblin village wasn't entirely safe either, which is why increasing their numbers with strong allies would benefit them. Rimuru assured the ogres that he would fight alongside them and never abandon them. The prince needed some time to consider the offer and went off alone to think. Eventually, the prince accepted Rimuru's proposal, but he decided to form a contract that would last only until the orc leader was defeated. After that, they could do as they pleased. Rimuru felt sympathy for the prince, who had to make difficult decisions as a leader. Rimuru transformed into his human form and began naming the ogres. However, he fainted before he could finish naming them. When he woke up, he found himself in the lap of the lady ogre under the shade of her ample bosom. To Rimuru's surprise, the ogres had evolved into a new race called Kaijen. The prince introduced himself as Benimaru. The great sage explained that Kaijen were an uncommon race born from ogres. Rimuru continued to name the ogres, giving them the names Shuna, Shen, Hakiru, Sawe, and Kurob. The orc army, meanwhile, was on the move in the forest. In the middle of the Jura forest lay Lake Sis, surrounded by vast marshlands. This area was controlled by the Lizardmen. The Lizardmen reported the sighting of an orc army of approximately 200,000 to their king. This was twice the size of the Lizardmen's army, causing concern among the king and his advisor. The advisor realized that only one entity could control such a massive orc army, the legendary Orc Lord, a unique monster that could even devour the fear and terror of its own allies. The Lizardmen's chances of victory were low, so the king decided to call for backup. He summoned his son, Gabaru, who was irritated that his father had not called him by his name, which was given to him by Demon Lord Gelmud. Hakiru, one of Rimuru's new ogre subordinates, was teaching goblin children swordsmanship. Benimaru shared the legend of the Orc Lord with Rimuru and mentioned that shortly before the orc attack, a suspicious magician had visited their village, wanting to name the ogres. However, Benimaru had turned him down, and the magician, who was revealed to be Demon Lord Gelmud, had cursed him as he left. Sawe informed Rimuru that he had spotted some Lizardmen, which was unusual. Gabiru was on his way to fulfill his father's order to seek an alliance with the goblin village, although he was annoyed that his father sought help from others against mere orcs. With the addition of Benimaru and his ogre comrades to the goblin village, life was becoming more lively and bustling. Shuna, one of the ogres, was busy weaving skill cloths made from hellsmoth, a sturdy cloth rich in magicules that provided excellent protection. Rimuru entered the room where Shuna and the dwarves were working, and she rushed over to hug him, much to the chagrin of Shin, who was carrying Rimuru. The weaving loom that Kaijen had made was easy to use, and Shin declared herself as Rimuru's secretary, a role that Rimuru accepted with amusement. Both Shuna and Shin seemed jealous of each other and insisted on taking care of Rimuru. In the male ogre room, Benimaru and the others were making themselves at home. Shin offered to cook for Rimuru, which made Benimaru nervous since he knew that Shin was a terrible cook. When Rimuru tasted her cooking, he quickly realized why Benimaru was sweating with anxiety. Gobda also took a bite and promptly fainted. Rimuru decided that Shin needed Benimaru's approval for her cooking. Meanwhile, Gabiru, the Lizardman prince, continued his efforts to gather the cooperation of various goblin groups. They had managed to gather nearly 7,000 goblins so far. One of his subordinates informed Gabiru about another village where goblins had tamed direwolves, and their leader was said to be a slime. Gabiru decided to head towards this village to seek their alliance. Rimuru spent some time watching Korub and Kaijen discuss technical matters, while Rigger reported the arrival of a Lizardman envoy. Rimuru, along with Benimaru and other ogres, went to meet them. The Lizardman envoy arrived with a dramatic entrance orchestrated by Gabiru. Gabiru introduced himself with an air of arrogance, calling everyone else weaklings. Rimuru had to consider the alliance carefully because Gabiru came across as rather foolish. Rimuru recalled a famous quotation by Napoleon, which stated that one should fear not a competent enemy, but an incompetent ally. Gabiru continued to boast about his strength, and Shin grew angry. She squeezed Rimuru, and he reminded her to take Benimaru's approval when cooking. Gabiru then laughed at Rimuru, claiming the credit for taming the direwolves. Rimuru summoned Ranga and told Gabiru that Ranga would speak for himself. However, Gabiru continued to disrespect Rimuru and challenged him to a fight. The other lizardmen began chanting Gabiru's name. Ranga was furious at a mere lizardman daring to insult his master. Suddenly, Gobda appeared out of nowhere, shocking Rimuru, who had believed Gobda to be unconscious after eating Shin's cooking. Ranga took Gobda and asked Gabiru to defeat him. If Gabiru won, Ranga would consider Gabiru's offer to become his subordinate. Rimuru motivated Gobda, promising to order Kaijen to forge a special weapon just for him if he won. On the other hand, if Gobda lost, he would have to eat food cooked by Shin. Hearing these stakes, Gobda suddenly turned powerful, striking Gabiru with a powerful kick to the back of his head. The Lizardmen were in complete shock. Even Rimuru was astounded by Gobda's abilities. Gobda defeated Gabiru with a single blow, and the ogres and Ranga praised him. Rimuru told the Lizardmen that he would consider their offer for an alliance, but emphasized that they would not serve the Lizardmen under any circumstances. He also requested that they take the unconscious Gabiru back to their village for the time being. As the Lizardmen departed with Gabiru, Rimuru and his companions contemplated their next steps. Meanwhile, the Orc army was advancing toward the Lizardmen's territory. Xiaowei had spotted the approaching army and reported it to Rimuru. Kaijen and others speculated that someone might be controlling the Orcs, as Orcs were not known for their intelligence. Rimuru wondered if the Demon Lord Jelmud might be behind the Orc alliance, but it was just a possibility. Rimuru and his companions also planned to meet with one of the body doubles who had come into contact with a Dryad and requested an audience. Dryads were tree spirits, and it had been several decades since the last time one had appeared. Rimuru ordered the Dryad to be brought before him, and she materialized from a tree, introducing herself as Trainee. Trainee had come with a request. She wanted Rimuru to defeat the Orc Lord. As the conference with Trainee, the Dryad, continued, Benimaru questioned her true motive for seeking their help. Trainee explained that she might have approached the ogres if their clan had survived, but ultimately chose to ask the goblins because of their connection to Rimuru. She acknowledged Rimuru's immense power and considered him a valuable ally. Trainee confirmed the existence of the Orc Lord, revealing that Dryads had knowledge of the events within the forest. She mentioned that the Orcs were driven by the Orc Lord's unique skill called Starved, which compelled them to devour everything in their path, even their own dead comrades. This insatiable hunger for power led them to consume their fallen comrades, acquiring their skills in the process. Trainee emphasized that the Orc Lord's desire for power was insatiable, and his army would continue to rampage unchecked. Rimuru accepted Trainee's request after consulting with the Great Sage. They discussed forming an alliance with the Lizardmen to combat the Orc threat. Xiaowei volunteered to take the message from Rimuru to the Lizardman chieftain. Meanwhile, Gabiru, who had been unconscious, awoke and started to believe that Gobta was the true leader of the goblin village. To his surprise, a masked Majin named Laplace appeared before him. Laplace introduced himself as a servant of Demon Lord Gelmud and delivered a warning to Gabaru. Gelmud intended to groom Gabaru as the next chieftain of the Lizardmen. Gabaru left for the marshlands, leaving Laplace behind. The Orc army continued its advance toward the marshlands, posing a grave threat. Sawe reached the Lizardman chieftain and delivered Rimuru's message, explaining that Rimuru Tempest had received a personal request from the Dryads to defeat the approaching Orc army. The Lizardman chieftain, who had never heard of Rimuru, was shocked to learn that the request came directly from a Dryad. Sawe also informed them that the Orc army was led by the formidable Orc Lord. The Lizardmen had no choice but to accept the alliance. However, one of the Lizardmen disrespected Rimuru, prompting Sawe to use his steel threads to admonish him, nearly beheading the Lizardman. The chieftain apologized for the behavior of his advisor. The chieftain had one condition: he wanted to meet Rimuru in person. Sawe agreed to make the necessary preparations within 7 days, allowing the chieftain to have an audience with Rimuru. Until then, the Lizardmen were to refrain from engaging in battle or conflict. Sawe's fellow ninja, suddenly disappeared during this exchange. The chieftain felt a glimmer of hope and quickly gathered all the Lizardmen who could fight, informing them about the powerful reinforcements and the impending alliance. Meanwhile, Gabaru had returned, boasting about the 7,000 goblins he had recruited. He insisted on fighting the Orc army rather than waiting for reinforcements. Gabaru challenged his father's leadership, claiming him to be too old to make the right decisions. He seized the throne, imprisoned the chieftain and his sister, and took possession of his father's vortex spear trident. Gabaru was overconfident and decided to engage the Orcs in battle, using a hit-and-withdraw tactic. The Lizardmen fought valiantly, but Gabaru's lack of understanding of the true terror of the Orc Lord became apparent. Rimuru and his companions, including Sawe, Hakiru, Benimaru, Shin, Gobta, and some goblin students, were en route to the marshlands to assist the Lizardmen. They remained unaware of the situation involving the imprisoned chieftain and Gabaru's engagement in battle with the Orcs. Sawe reported that he was witnessing a battle between a group of Lizardmen and high-ranking Orcs. Among them was a personal guard to the Lizardman chieftain who was struggling against a high-ranking Orc. Rimuru immediately ordered Sawe to intervene and assist the Lizardmen. Sawe, without hesitation, launched an attack on the Orcs, brutally dispatching them. The injured Lizardman guard was healed with a healing potion provided by Rimuru, who then introduced himself to the Lizardmen. The Lizardman guard pleaded with Rimuru to save her father, the chieftain, and her brother Gabaru. She explained the situation, including Gabaru's rebellion, to Rimuru. Shin comforted her, and Rimuru ordered Sawe to free the Lizardman chieftain from imprisonment. Meanwhile, the battle between the Orcs and Lizardmen raged on. The Lizardmen were terrorized when they witnessed the Orcs devouring one of their own. The Orcs' consumption of a Lizardman allowed them to move faster and adopt Lizardman-like traits. Gabaru ordered a close formation to retreat, but the Orcs had already surrounded them. As the Orcs closed in, an Orc general appeared before Gabaru. His immense aura filled Gabaru with dread as he pondered the power gap between the Orc general and the feared Orc Lord. Gabaru, determined to prove himself, challenged the Orc general to a one-on-one battle, which the general accepted. The battle between Gabaru and the Orc general began with exchanged blows. The Lizardmen chanted Gabaru's name in support. The Orc general unleashed a devastating attack named Chaos Eater, which Gabaru narrowly dodged before counterattacking. However, the Orc general blocked Gabaru's attack with his shield and landed a powerful blow, throwing Gabaru back toward the Lizardmen. Just as the Orc general was about to finish off Gabaru, Gobta intervened to stop the attack. Using their shadow movement, Rimuru, Benimaru, Hakiru, and Shin appeared on the scene. Rimuru initiated a barrage of black flames, obliterating multiple Orcs. Benimaru, Hakiru, and Shin joined the fray to seek revenge for their fallen comrades. Fear began to grip the Orcs as Rimuru continued to rain down destruction upon them. Rimuru, now with wings, watched the battle unfold. Ranga summoned a massive tornado named Death Storm that instantly killed the Orc general. Ranga had evolved into a Tempest Star Wolf with 2 horns, becoming even more powerful. The Orcs were overwhelmed by the combined might of the ogres and Rimuru's forces, leading to their swift defeat. Sawe freed the Lizardman chieftain from captivity, and Saori swiftly dispatched any remaining threats. Gelmud, observing the battle from his magic globe, grew furious at his defeat and attempted to break the globe when Sawe warned him. Using the Orc general, Gelmud realized he needed to take action before his plans crumbled. Rimuru, with determination, located the Orc Lord as the next step in their battle against the Orc forces. Gelmud confronted Rimuru and Benimaru's group, cursing them for thwarting his plan to create a new demon lord that would serve him. He explained that he had been sowing seeds, giving out many names, and creating ultimate pawns to achieve his goals. Gelmud then ordered the Orc Lord to attack, and the Orc Lord inquired about evolving into a demon lord. Gelmud revealed his intention for the Orc Lord to become Demon Lord Orc Disaster, a plan devised by Gelmud and his master. Gelmud launched an attack on Gabaru, but Gabaru's subordinates sacrificed themselves to block the attack. Rimuru intervened and provided healing potions to the Lizardmen. He then used his sticky threads to immobilize Gelmud and delivered 2 powerful punches. Gelmud, in fear, stammered and asked Rimuru to join him. In response, Rimuru kicked Gelmud hard and inquired about his master. Gelmud ordered the Orc Lord to attack Rimuru, but instead, the Orc Lord beheaded Gelmud in a single blow and devoured his body, absorbing his skills and magical abilities. The Orc Lord then began to evolve into Demon Lord Orc Disaster and introduced himself as Geld, the Demon Lord. Shin rushed to attack Geld, and Hakiru beheaded him, but Geld quickly regenerated and reattached his head. Sawe used arcane thread fetters to bind Geld in threads, Benimaru unleashed black flames, and Ranga attacked with black lightning. Although they inflicted some damage, Geld proved resilient. Geld absorbed another orc, gaining further healing abilities. He launched an attack similar to one used by Gelmud, but Rimuru absorbed it using his powers. Rimuru stepped forward to fight, utilizing Great Sage in auto battle mode. Geld attempted to use Chaos Eater, but Great Sage cut off Geld's arm and began to overpower him. Geld moved swiftly, but Rimuru managed to block his attacks. Geld grabbed Rimuru's hand, but Rimuru retaliated with Flare Circle, which burned Geld. However, Geld was fire resistant. Rimuru took over the battle and asked Great Sage to rest. He figured out how to defeat the Orc Disaster. Before Geld could devour Rimuru, Rimuru initiated the process of absorbing the Orc Disaster. The two beings began a battle of consciousness while their physical forms clashed. Rimuru could see the memories of the Orc Disaster, known as the Orc King, who had suffered through famine, losing his offspring to hunger while under the control of Starved. Geld's tragic past was revealed to Rimuru. The Orc Lord, worried for his brethren, was assured by Rimuru that their sins would be forgiven. Finally, the Orc Disaster was absorbed, and the goblins began to chant in victory. After the battle, Rimuru informed the Kaijen that they were free to go their own way. However, Benimaru requested to pledge their allegiance to Rimuru, wanting to continue serving him until their lives came to an end. After the epic showdown between the Orcs and the Alliance, representatives from each race gathered to discuss the aftermath of the battle. In a surprising twist, Rimuru emerged as the chairman of the Jura Forest. Starting with the Orcs, Rimuru decided not to press any charges against them, leaving the Orcs utterly flabbergasted. With a mischievous glint in his eye, Rimuru explained that the root cause of the battle was hunger and famine, conditions that could have driven any race to the brink. He even cheekily declared that he had taken on the Orcs' sins as part of a promise to Demon Lord Geld. The ogres, known for their stern demeanor, surprisingly forgave the Orcs. Even after such a massive battle, a whopping 150,000 Orcs remained. Rimuru, in his wisdom, decided to welcome them all into the fold. He devised a plan where the Lizardmen would share their clean water source and fish, the goblins would provide housing, and Rimuru's village would supply goods to the Orcs. In return, the Orcs would contribute their labor. This arrangement formed the basis of a newfound alliance among all the races in the Jura Forest, resulting in mutually beneficial relationships. The Orcs were deeply moved by Rimuru's generosity and swore their unwavering loyalty to him. Trainee, the wise Dryad, offered her protection and the bounty of the forest to Rimuru. She officially recognized him as the new chancellor of the great forest of Jura, prompting everyone to bow in reverence. And thus, the Jura Forest Alliance was born. Benimaru, ever the witty one, assured the Orc representative that they were all servants of the same master, making them kindred spirits. However, he sternly warned that betrayal of Rimuru would not be forgiven. Rimuru, impressed by Benimaru's words, decided to give the Orc representative a name, Geld, and entrusted him with the care of the Orc community. This gesture led to Geld's evolution into an Orc king. Over the next 10 days, Rimuru bestowed names upon all the remaining Orcs. He also named the Lizardman chieftain, Abaru, who experienced a significant evolution. Meanwhile, Gabaru, who had previously faced treason charges, was spared from a death sentence. Instead, he was exiled and excommunicated from the village. As Gabaru wandered away, he encountered his loyal subordinates, who chose to follow him into exile. Meanwhile, Demon Lord Clayman stewed over his failure, with Laplace taunting him mercilessly. 3 months after the battle, the High Orcs, under Kaijen's guidance, had developed new skills and become a dependable workforce. What was once a village had evolved into a bustling town with well-constructed roads, buildings, and a sewage system. One day, Sawi reported that several hundred Pegasus-mounted knights were heading toward their village. The formidable King Gazel Dwargo had arrived to meet Rimuru in person. King Gazel landed right before Rimuru, and as Gazel began to threaten him, Kaijen hurried to greet the Dwarf King. Rimuru, never one to back down from a challenge, introduced himself and accepted King Gazel's one-on-one battle challenge. The duel commenced, with Trainee also arriving to witness the spectacle. They decided that Rimuru would win if he could block King Gazel's strike. After a series of intense blows, Rimuru managed to dodge the first strike and successfully blocked the second. The winner was declared, and King Gazel couldn't help but be impressed by Rimuru's sword skills. Rimuru humbly attributed his abilities to his master, Hakiru, who was also the mentor of the Dwarf King. Nightfall brought a grand feast, during which Dwarf King Gazel expressed his desire to establish a mutual relationship treaty with Rimuru's burgeoning nation. Rimuru gladly accepted the proposal but realized that he hadn't thought of a name for his nation yet. Suddenly, inspiration struck, and he christened his nation the Jura Tempest Federation, a name that resonated with everyone present. The Goblin town was officially named Rimuru Capital City, and as Rimuru and the Dwarf King shook hands, a new era of cooperation and friendship was sealed. After the treaty was signed between the Dwargo Kingdom and the Jura Tempest Federation, the nation of monsters gained a powerful and influential ally. Just 2 days later, they received an unexpected gift. Vesta, who was offered by the Dwarf King as a gesture of goodwill. The Dwarf King conveyed to Rimuru that Vesta could be used in any way he saw fit, and even ordered Vesta to immerse himself in studying within the village. Vesta, humbled and remorseful for his past actions, approached Kaijen and Rimuru to request permission to work for their federation. Kaijen, recognizing Vesta's talents, readily accepted and took full responsibility for his guidance. Rimuru, always open to new talent, agreed, and the Dwarf King left, satisfied with the arrangement. In the meantime, Gabiru had also joined the village, and even his sister came to gain valuable experience from their new allies. With the formation of their alliance, Rimuru bestowed names upon Gabiru and his brethren. The Lizardmen had evolved into powerful dragonutes, and Rimuru entrusted Soka and other servants to Saui's care while assigning Gabiru and his comrades various tasks. As the Lizardmen evolved, some of them began to resemble humans more closely. Rimuru established a laboratory for Vesta in Veldora's cave, where Gabiru and his associates worked as miners. Much had changed in a short span of time. However, a new challenge arose when Lord Milim, a servant of Lord Clayman, expressed her desire to attack Rimuru and the village. Initially, Clayman denied her request due to their non-aggression pact with the Jura forest. Still, with Veldora's absence, Clayman ultimately agreed to Milim's plan. Lord Milim began preparations for an impending attack. Rimuru suddenly sensed an immense magical presence approaching the village at incredible speed. Lord Milim dramatically landed on a cliff before Rimuru, introducing herself as the one and only Dragonoid, also known as the Destroyer and Demon Lord Milim Nava. She had come to acquaint herself with the strongest entity in the Jura forest. Lord Milim possessed unique eyes capable of assessing the magicules in anyone. She assured Rimuru that her visit was merely a courtesy call. However, a misunderstanding led to a heated battle as Shin and the others attacked Lord Milim, prompting Ranga to swiftly evacuate Rimuru to safety. Rimuru, with his quick thinking, used a jar of honey to distract Lord Milim. She found it delicious and demanded more, leading to a humorous negotiation where Rimuru proposed that she admit defeat if she wanted more honey. He taunted her playfully, and they eventually called it a draw. Lord Milim vowed not to mess with Rimuru again, and Rimuru rewarded her with a jar of honey. Lord Milim then asked Rimuru about becoming a demon lord, but Rimuru declined, as he found enjoyment in his current form as a slime. Lord Milim explained the allure of being a demon lord, but Rimuru insisted that he was content. They agreed to address each other as Rimuru-san and Lord Milim, respectively. Gabiru, not realizing who Lord Milim was, called her a runt, resulting in a powerful punch that sent him flying miles away. Rimuru revealed Lord Milim's true identity as a demon lord to Gabiru, leaving him in shock. Rimuru introduced Lord Milim to the entire village, marking the first time the villagers had seen a demon lord. They were initially apprehensive but soon embraced the idea of such a powerful ally joining their forces. Rimuru took Lord Milim to a hot spring bath, which she thoroughly enjoyed. Rigurd and others cautioned Rimuru about the potential complications of having Lord Milim as an influential ally, as it might not sit well with other demon lords. Rimuru agreed that they should do everything possible to keep Lord Milim happy, given her immense strength. Shin and Shuna, in the meantime, enjoyed playing in the water during the hot spring bath, adding a touch of lightheartedness to their eventful day. Fuse and his minister friend engaged in a discussion about Rimuru, who had played a pivotal role in saving the world from the Orc Lord. They contemplated whether Rimuru should be considered an ally or a potential threat. Fuse ultimately decided to meet with Rimuru, accompanied by Aran and Cavil. Meanwhile, Lord Milim was thoroughly enjoying the food in the town. Vesta was hard at work on a communication globe and various experiments. Rimuru decided to show Vesta his remarkable healing potion, purified from specific plants, boasting an impressive 99% efficiency. In contrast, using dwarven techniques, Vesta could only extract 98% pure healing potion. Rimuru's potion was classified as a high potion, and that mere 1% difference made a significant potency improvement. Vesta eagerly shared his breakthrough with Rimuru, who absorbed and analyzed the potion. It turned out to be equivalent to a full potion that Rimuru could create. Kaijen and Gabiru congratulated Vesta. Rimuru suggested selling the high-level healing potion as a source of income for Tempest. Kaijen, however, believed that such potent potions should be reserved for high-level champions in life and death situations. Vesta added that the healing potions typically sold in the Dwarven Kingdom were of lower potency, created by diluting high potions. Vesta proposed that Rimuru negotiate with King Gazel to produce low potions in Tempest City. Kaijen pointed out that if Tempest produced and sold potions, the Dwarven Kingdom would only need to acquire the necessary ingredients, benefiting both nations. As Rimuru and Kaijen exited the cave, they heard a massive explosion in the city. A warrior from the Beast King's Beastketeers army had attacked and injured Rigurd. Lord Milim intervened swiftly, knocking the warrior unconscious. Rimuru arrived to heal Rigurd but was confused by Lord Milim's actions. He scolded her for her recklessness, which made her cry. She retaliated by delivering another powerful kick to the unconscious warrior, ready to blow him up entirely before Rimuru intervened. Rimuru began investigating the warrior and his comrades, pressing the warrior for their purpose in Tempest City. The warrior, however, displayed arrogance and disrespect towards Rimuru. Lord Milim silenced him with a menacing gaze, and Rimuru calmed her down. The warrior finally revealed that his lord, Kaijen, had ordered them to scout a mysterious Magin to serve him. Rimuru instructed the warrior to leave and convey a message to Kaijen. If he wanted to talk, he could choose a date and contact them again. The warrior departed with resentment towards Lord Milim. Rimuru then inquired about Lord Kaijen, promising Lord Milim a new weapon in exchange for information. She explained that a few demon lords, including herself, had manipulated Jelmut in a scheme to create a puppet demon lord. The storm unleashed during her attack would grow in strength, potentially engulfing Rimuru's nation and people. One of the neighboring nations was the Kingdom of Falmouth, with barren lands, western provinces, and eastern plains. Tempest served as a major trade power known as the gateway to the western provinces. A rowdy gang led by a man named Yaum roamed the region, drawn together by money. As Yaum and his gang traveled, they heard screams and encountered adventurers facing a giant spider monster. Iran and his friend rushed to assist Yaum. A colossal night spider appeared, which Yaum managed to defeat after some struggle. Yaum expected Fuse to pay him for his involvement. Unexpectedly, Gobta appeared out of nowhere, greeting Cavil. Gobta defeated the spider and claimed it as dinner. His actions left Fuse and Yaum utterly shocked. They began preparing the spider meal while Lord Milim eagerly waited in line for her portion. Fuse and Yaum finally met Rimuru, and Yaum started hurling insults at him. Shin, annoyed by Yaum's behavior, knocked him unconscious with a swift strike from her sheathed sword. Rimuru healed Yaum and expressed his desire for peace. He explained that Tempest had already formed an alliance with the Dwargon Kingdom and aimed to make Tempest more convenient for merchants, a fact confirmed by Vesta. Fuse recognized Vesta and wanted to ensure that Rimuru was an ally to humans. Rimuru asked Yaum to take credit for defeating the Orc Lord so that Rimuru could be known as a trustworthy monster who had assisted the champion in the battle. Yaum contemplated the idea and, after witnessing the town's prosperity, began to trust Rimuru. He expressed his desire to serve under Rimuru and even contemplated faking his own death to avoid returning to his kingdom. Yaum and his comrades decided to undergo training under Hakiru. Demon Lord Clayman, on the other hand, hired another Magin named Tyr to gather information about Rimuru the Slime. Tyr also informed Clayman about another Demon Lord's attempt to revive Charybdis. This news prompted Clayman to instruct Tyr to locate the sea and find out if they could tame Charybdis. Phobio, the warrior who held a grudge against Milim, was determined to seek revenge for the humiliation he had suffered. However, his desire for revenge wasn't realistic given Milim's immense power. His comrades suggested that instead of seeking revenge, they should consider establishing diplomatic relations with Tempest, as they possessed valuable skills and techniques that beastmen lacked. Despite the advice, Phobio's desire for vengeance persisted. Suddenly, a masked Magin named Footman appeared before them, a member of the moderate Harlequin Alliance, also known as Footman the Angry Pirate. Tyr, another powerful individual, also appeared alongside Footman. They explained that they had sensed a wave of hatred and anger, which had prompted them to inquire about Phobio's grievances. Phobio's fellow beastmen wanted to drive the Magins away, but Footman enticed Phobio with the prospect of gaining power, albeit with some associated risks. They proposed that Phobio tame Charybdis, a formidable monster, and become an equal to a demon lord. However, they laid down certain conditions for this partnership. Phobio decided to send his comrades back to their kingdom and resigned from his position to avoid causing any problems for his lord. Meanwhile, Shen, Shuna, and Milim were competing to see who could hold their breath the longest. Fuse, who had initially believed that Rimuru and Tempest were harmless, chose to stay because he found Tempest comfortable and desired an extended break. He had also laid the groundwork for spreading the word that Yaum and his team were the ones who had defeated the Orc Lord. portraying Rimuru and his group as harmless monsters who had merely assisted the champions. Rimuru asked Fuse to help build a road leading to the kingdom of Belmond, as he intended to sell Tempest's produced goods to other kingdoms. Rimuru also requested that Fuse introduce some advisors to him. Phobio and the Magin were outside the cave of Charybdis, which had not yet been revived. They convinced Phobio to enter the cave, break the seal, and take Charybdis into his body, merging with it as one being. Unbeknownst to Phobio, he had fallen into their trap, and Tyr and Footman mocked him for being a fool. This was all part of Clayman's plan. Rimuru and Milim were in conversation when they sensed a strong presence. All of the Kaijen joined them, and suddenly, Trainee's younger sister, Dryad, appeared. Dryad warned them about the approaching calamity and the revival of Charybdis. She provided further information, revealing that Charybdis was Veldora's child, a sky monster with no intelligence that summoned shark-like creatures called megalodons from the spirit world to join its rampage. Charybdis was heading towards Tempest with 13 sharks, and Milim expressed her desire to help. However, Shin and Shuna disagreed with her. Rimuru considered calling King Gazel for backup. After a conference, Rimuru shared his past and the story of Shizu with Fuse. They began formulating plans to confront and battle Charybdis. With an army prepared, Rimuru's forces consisted of orcs, dwarves, dragonclaws, and Kaijen. The battle against Charybdis and its accompanying megalodons began. Rimuru managed to take down one of the sharks, but their attacks were proving insufficient to destroy the formidable creatures. This was due to Charybdis' unique skill, magic jamming, which reduced magic efficiency. Geld and his men, with some assistance from Gabaru, successfully took down another shark after a challenging struggle. Pegasus and Gobder riders utilized a tactic where some would divert the attention of the megalodons while others attacked. Hakiru served as the strategist for Rimuru's army. Milim expressed her eagerness to join the battle, but Rimuru refused her offer. Sawe used his strings to manipulate one of the sharks to attack another, while Ranga and Shin, demonstrating incredible abilities, took down 2 more sharks. Charybdis was the last remaining threat, and despite their best efforts, Ranga and Sawe's attacks didn't seem to work. Charybdis began attacking them with its scales, and Sawe and Shin struggled to defend against them. Ranga stepped in as a shield to allow Sawe and Shin to escape. They continued their attacks, but Charybdis displayed a rapid regeneration ability that disappointed Rimuru. It could regenerate all removed scales within 3 minutes. Rimuru decided they had only 3 minutes to deal as much damage as possible before the scales regenerated. The Rimuru ordered the monsters to attack Charybdis and prevent its regeneration. With the support of the Pegasus Knights, their combined strength increased tenfold, yet by sunset, Charybdis had only sustained around 30% damage. In a surprising moment, Charybdis muttered Milim's name and showed signs of life within. Rimuru realized that Charybdis had come to Tempest because of Milim. He called Milim and informed her of Phobio's involvement, urging her to engage in battle without killing him. Phobio attacked Charybdis with its scales, but Milim intercepted the scales and launched a massive attack called Dragon Buster, completely destroying Charybdis' body and ejecting Phobio. Rimuru caught Phobio and began healing him. Charybdis' magic ore was removed from Phobio and consumed by Rimuru. The Great Sage isolated it for appraisal. Phobio apologized to Milim for his grave mistake. Trainee and Tri arrived to investigate Phobio's discovery. Phobio revealed information about Footman and Tyr. Gabaru informed Rimuru about Laplace, the president of the moderate Harlequin Alliance, a jack-of-all-trades group. The pieces of the puzzle started coming together. While Milim had no knowledge of such an alliance, she suspected that Clayman was behind the scheme. Phobio took full responsibility for his actions, and both Milim and Rimuru forgave him. Suddenly, Demon Lord Carrion, Phobio's lord, arrived at the scene. Rimuru saw Carrion for the first time. Carrion punched Phobio into the ground but thanked Rimuru for sparing his life. Rimuru proposed a non-aggression pact with the Jura Tempest Federation, which Carrion agreed to. He then took Phobio, who was bleeding, and left the scene. After the battle, Hakiru was busy preparing a feast for everyone. He was chopping up the dead megalodons to be served for dinner, while the Kaijen and Habaru were checking the scales from the megalodons to create new weapons, shields, armor, and accessories that could fetch high prices in trade. The monsters were having a lively celebration, reminiscing about the battle they had just fought. The Jura forest had become more peaceful after the non-aggression pact. Meanwhile, Rimuru was enjoying a relaxing time with Milim and other girls in a hot bath. Milim felt the need to make sure that other demons stayed away from causing trouble in Tempest. After the feast, the goblins were lying around, satisfied and full. Rimuru had a dream about Shizu, in which she told him to move to the royal capital of the kingdom of Ingracia. This dream led Rimuru to make a decision. He announced to everyone that he would be leaving the village for a while and entrusted them with the responsibility of taking care of it in his absence. Rimuru departed from the village with Ranga, embarking on his first journey to the kingdom of humans in the 2 years since his reincarnation as a slime. He was on his way to Freedom Academy, which had been established by one of Shizu's students, Yuuki Kagurazaka. Rimuru had sent an introductory letter through Fuse. 3 days later, Rimuru arrived in the royal capital of Ingracia, using the ID that Fuse had prepared for him without any issues. The city was massive, with modern architecture, and Rimuru entered the Free Union. There, he met the Grand Master and sought to meet with Yuuki. Upon seeing Shizu's mask on Rimuru's face, Yuuki attacked him. Rimuru managed to calm Yuuki down by using words that Yuuki had taught to Shizu. They began to talk about anime, manga, and updates about Tokyo. Yuuki expressed his wish to see those manga with his own eyes, which gave Rimuru an idea. He asked Yuuki for some paper, absorbed it as a slime, and started creating manga for him. Rimuru gave Yuuki a truckload of manga. Rimuru then explained the reason for his journey to the royal capital, and Yuuki initially mistook it for Rimuru planning to return to Japan. Yuuki mentioned the myths of ogres and orcs in Japan and speculated about the possibility of traveling between both worlds under certain conditions. Yuuki arranged for Rimuru to become a school teacher at Freedom Academy, where he would be teaching Shizu's students. Yuuki also asked Rimuru if he knew Hinata Sakaguchi, a student of Shizu. Rimuru remembered Hinata as the one who had left Shizu to walk his own path and had gained strength surpassing Shizu at the age of 15. Yuuki shared this information to help Rimuru understand the difference between the otherworlders like Hinata and those who were spontaneously summoned, like themselves. Yuuki further explained the summoning process, the creation of a body when traveling to this world, and the tragic fate of the 5 other summoned students who had been destroyed. He expressed his desire for Shizu to save those children. As Rimuru entered the classroom to meet his new students, he was immediately attacked by one of them, a student named Ken. Rimuru was introduced to the 5 summoned students, Kenya Misaki, Ryota Sekahachi, Gail Gibson, Alice Rondo, and Chloe Aubert, whom he would be teaching. Rimuru was determined to gain the trust of his students, and he began by taking attendance. However, none of the 5 students responded to him. Rimuru decided to use Ranga to scare the students into cooperating with him. He then attempted to start a lesson, but the students protested, explaining that they hadn't studied anything since arriving in this world. They were aware of their impending fate, and their situation had left them hopeless. Rimuru wanted to give them a glimmer of hope and asked the students to try to defeat him within 10 minutes using their chosen weapons. Ken was the first to step forward, but he struggled to land even a single blow. When the time was up, Ken left in tears. Chloe, who could use water magic, was the next to attack. She trapped Rimuru in water and launched water blades at him, but they had no effect on him. Gale followed, using magic bullets, which Rimuru easily absorbed. Ryota then applied the body enhancement technique Berserker and attempted to attack Rimuru, but he missed every strike. Lastly, Alice used puppets to fight, but the time ran out before she could make any significant progress. Rimuru pondered a way to save these children from their inevitable fate. He showed them Shizu's mask and told them that Shizu had entrusted their well-being to him. This revelation began to earn the students' trust. Rimuru used a warp portal, a technique taught to him by Vesta, to meet with Trainee and discuss the situation of the children and how to potentially save them. Trainee informed Rimuru about the location of the superior spirit's dwelling, known as the Dwelling of Spirits, but she was unaware of the current queen's identity or whereabouts. Rimuru made a promise to Shizu that he would take care of everything. He continued to work as a teacher for a month while also trying to locate a superior spirit but found no success. Rimuru decided to take the students on a picnic and discuss their training. He offered a manga as a reward for the student who performed the best. As he was about to distribute the manga, high-pressure winds started blowing, and the Great Sage informed Rimuru of the aura emitted by a sky dragon heading towards the capital. Rimuru followed the dragon, which was attacking the army with its force shield and lightning. Rimuru absorbed the dragon and flew away, saving the city. Later, Yuuki informed Rimuru about a merchant named M. Jalmire, whom Rimuru had previously saved in his adult Shizu form. M. Jalmire invited Rimuru and his students to a dinner. Yuuki assured Rimuru that M. Jalmire could be trusted, as he had conducted a background check on him. Rimuru and his students enjoyed a grand feast with M. Jalmire, during which M. Jalmire revealed that he knew Rimuru's true identity. Rimuru asked M. Jalmire to visit Tempest City and help them with trade and commerce, to which M. Jalmire agreed. As they were about to leave, Rimuru overheard M. Jalmire's servant mentioning the name of the Queen of Spirits. He approached the servant and asked if she knew the location of the Dwelling of Spirits, which she did. In exchange for a generous tip, she revealed that the Dwelling of Spirits was located in the Republic of Ingracia. Rimuru then began his journey toward the Dwelling of Spirits with his students. Rimuru and the children had reached the entrance of the Dwelling of Spirits, but their path wasn't straightforward. They started hearing laughter in their heads, attempting to scare them off. The labyrinthine path then suddenly lit up, leading them to a dead end. The room transformed into a battlefield, and Rimuru was asked to face a test in the form of a robot. Rimuru instructed Ranga to protect the children while he confronted the robot. The robot was a formidable adversary, made of magisteel and even stronger than the dragon Rimuru had faced in the capital. It launched attacks at Rimuru, causing concern among the children. Rimuru assured them and retaliated with arcane threads and a hell flare attack, which vaporized the robot. Rimuru then threatened to burn the spirit responsible if she didn't reveal herself. A fairy named Ramiris of the Labyrinth appeared before Rimuru, introducing herself as one of the 10 great demon lords. Rimuru playfully teased Ramiris, which irked her. Ramiris explained that she had wanted to have fun and then saved them dramatically to earn Rimuru's respect. She scolded Rimuru for destroying her creation, the colossal robot, which she had built using spirit engineering. Ramiris revealed that the robot was the same project that Vesta's team had failed to complete. She had successfully finished the research and built it herself. Despite her eccentric behavior, Rimuru acknowledged Ramiris' abilities and asked for her assistance. After explaining their predicament, Rimuru asked Ramiris to introduce them to the Queen of Spirits. However, Ramiris disclosed that she was the queen he was looking for. She explained the reason why a demon lord held the title of Queen of Spirits and told Rimuru about Demon Lord Leon, a former hero who had become a demon lord. Ramiris, as the former Queen of Spirits, had many titles, including Guide to the Saints and Fairy of the Labyrinth. She agreed to help Rimuru with his plan to summon a superior spirit. Ramiris led them to the Dwelling of Spirits, where Rimuru would attempt to summon a superior spirit. If he failed, he could use his degenerate skill to create one using the gathered energy. Rimuru and the students were on their way to summon superior spirits. Ramiris led them to a location where they could call forth the spirits by using any word or phrase, such as help or let's play. Gale was the first to attempt the summoning. He began praying, but instead of superior spirits, inferior spirits appeared. Rimuru used his gluttony ability to absorb the tiny spirits and created a superior spirit with the earth attribute. He then transferred this spirit to Gale. Alice was next, and she received a superior spirit with the space attribute. Ken summoned a superior light spirit, and Rimuru transferred the spirit to him. Chloe began her summoning, and a superior spirit appeared. However, this spirit was different and seemed to possess incredible power. It kissed Rimuru and vanished into Chloe. Ramiris explained that the entity resembled a spirit and had come from the future. By inhabiting Chloe, the spirit had laid the foundation for its own rebirth. The students were saved, and they expressed their gratitude to Ramiris. Many other spirits appeared, and the students celebrated their newfound abilities. As promised, Rimuru gave Ramiris a new robot possessed by a demon. Yuuki was curious about how Rimuru had created the superior spirits, but was silenced when Rimuru gave him a bunch of new manga. Rimuru reminisced about his journey over the past 2 years, making new friends, battling formidable foes, building alliances with powerful nations, befriending a demon lord, saving the students, and even inhabiting an entire town. Another demon lord observed Rimuru's activities through a magic globe. Rimuru resigned from his position as a teacher, and the students were emotional about his departure. Chloe didn't want him to leave, and Rimuru gave them coats crafted by Shuna as parting gifts. He also gave Chloe Shizu's mask, although he couldn't explain why he chose to give it to her. As Rimuru and Ranga continued their journey back to Tempest City, they were unaware that a mysterious warrior in a white coat was eavesdropping on their conversation from behind a tree. Rimuru looked forward to returning home. In the kingdom of Filtwood, a lady who had lost her husband sought to summon a demon to avenge his death. She was willing to offer anything in exchange for justice and to make the one who killed her husband pay for their actions. This kingdom bordered the forest of Jura, and Shizu received an urgent request to visit the kingdom and deal with a resurrected demon threat. Upon her arrival, Shizu encountered a group of heroes, some of whom were well known, while others were less familiar. The kingdom's minister explained the situation to them, detailing that the demon had been sealed away by a champion named Orthos centuries ago. 2 renowned heroes had already perished in attempts to confront the demon. The demon sought to reclaim its body, which was in the possession of the kingdom, to complete its resurrection. Shizu speculated that the demon might be a superior demon, possibly even an archdemon. She questioned the minister about the demon's name, but there were no records of it having one. This lack of a name puzzled Shizu, as it seemed unusual for a demon of such power to be nameless, especially if it had defeated a renowned hero like Silver Wings. The situation grew tense when a man attempted to leave the hall and was swiftly killed by the minister's general, who burned him to death. To everyone's shock, the deceased man turned out to be a lesser demon. The situation escalated, with paranoia and distrust spreading among those present. The demon responsible for stirring up trouble presented itself as an adventurer named Kuro. Shizu confronted him, urging him to introduce himself. Kuro attacked Shizu with flames, but her mask, which possessed the ability of infinite time compression, shielded her from harm. Shizu retaliated with an attack of her own, using inferno flames. Kuro eventually revealed his true form and engaged Shizu in a fierce battle. Despite Kuro's formidable abilities, Shizu ultimately prevailed. He retreated after realizing that Shizu had access to such a powerful item. The following day, Shizu remained contemplative about the demon and the events of the previous day. Lord Leon informed her about demons known as progenitors, but Shizu considered it unlikely that Kuro was one of them. Shizu was summoned by the minister's guard to meet with the minister himself. During their conversation, Shizu grew suspicious as she realized that the guard had not been present during the previous day's events yet spoke knowledgeably about her fighting style. The guard led her to a basement chamber with 3 thrones, 2 of which were occupied. To her surprise, the guard revealed himself to be the king, who was none other than the champion Orthos. Orthos admitted that he had never sealed the demon and had used it as bait to lure adventurers to their doom. Orthos praised Shizu's mask and expressed his intent to devour her. He effortlessly overpowered her in their confrontation. However, the demon who had previously fought Shizu intervened, decapitating Orthos and 2 of the kingdom's ministers. Orthos had underestimated this demon, known as Black Noir, a progenitor renowned for taking revenge. Black Noir had been summoned to avenge Silver Wings, the lady and her husband who were once celebrated heroes. Orthos was the one who had killed Silver Wings. Now, Black Noir sought the mask, and the kingdom believed Shizu had defeated the demon, leading to a case of mistaken identity in the records of the kingdom's events. As Rimuru is taking the junior class, he tells the students that he will be leaving the academy soon to return to his village. The students look a bit sad after hearing this, but the 2 bastards, Alice and Kenya, say that it's good to hear it. Rimuru further tells them that he is around for almost a month, and the finals are also coming, so the students should prepare for it. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door and it's Tis Sensei. She is the new teacher in the academy, and Rimuru says that he's busy, but Alice, knowing how Rimuru is, just knows he's trying to slip away to take a nap. Then Rimuru takes Ranga and sees the whole kingdom from a hill before teleporting to his home village, Forest Jura Tempest. Rimuru feels the fresh air and says it has been a long time. Then he starts his long life sob story of how he was stabbed and then got reincarnated as a slime with Riz. He made a nation of his own and saved the students of Shizu. Now, he's facing some difficulty with the demon lord Carrion, and luckily, the demon lord himself has asked for a delegation. Rimuru has chosen Benimaru as the leader and Rigger as his assistant. As a man there starts crying and looks like a complete loser. In the temple, Rimuru is taking various forms of vessels that are to be sent with the delegation when Shuna and Shin arrive. They greet Rimuru and offer him a bunch of dresses. He picks the first one, which looks like a hot wife, the second one looks like Elsa from Frozen, and the third one is a badass samurai. The girls love this, but these are not the type. So, Rimuru puts on a casual dress and goes to address the nation. Everyone starts simping over him when he finally shuts the crowd. He tells them that the nation is growing strong, but they are still inexperienced, so the delegation will make them stronger. He tells Benimaru not to look for a fight and come back like a scared little bitch. Everyone bid farewell to the delegation, and the preparation for the other kingdom's delegation starts. Shuna is looking after the cooking, Vesta is the dressing manager, and a bunch of other mess is going on when suddenly, the forest waifu trainee arrives. She tells Rimuru that the delegation from the kingdom is close and they will arrive within 3 days, but before that, others are coming as well. Rimuru is confused, as 2 little brats pick some berries when a cute mushroom arrives that suddenly turns into a giant-ass monster. A man named Yam comes and eliminates the mushroom in half. He and his buddies had previously defeated the Orc Lord, and now they spread positivity about the Tempest Forest. They arrive before the delegation and at night, taking a hot Suna with Rimuru when he tells them about the Demon Lord's delegation. The 3 are surprised when Rimuru finally reveals that it is just for some healthy relations. The next day, the party goes to greet the delegation while Rimuru sits under the melons of Shin. The demon's delegation comes on mighty tigers, and the girl introduces herself as Albus, the Golden Serpent. She is one of Demon Lord's breastfeeders. Suddenly, a cat, or you can say a cocky bastard, jumps from the carriage. Her name is Sophia, who is looking to get herself kicked. She disrespects Yam, and Rimuru can't withstand it, so he orders him to fight the BH. But Shin is filled with anger. Moving with the speed of sound, the destruction was beyond anything. Albus orders her toy Grucius to take on Yam, and the 2 bastards start to fight. 2 fights are ongoing between the 2 kingdoms, and Rimuru is just watching them because he's the jerk who started it all. Sophia and Shin keep going to reach their limits. Sophia uses her lightning magic, but our milky mommy firmly believes in bare-knuckle fights. Sophia mocks Shin, to which Shin agrees and prepares her final blow that will destroy everything to the pits of Tartarus, the maximum magic bullet. Everyone tries to stop her, but she isn't listening. Suddenly, Albus turns into a serpent and intervenes. Turns out that it was all just a test to see whether the Tempest Federation is worthy of the Demon Lord's recognition or not. Everyone is happy, and Grucius and Yaum also get along, except Shin, because her being a klutz has turned the energy blast to its limit and can't control it now. Everyone hesitates and tries to take shelter, but Rimuru tells her to redirect the blast towards him. Shin throws the mighty blow at Rimuru, and he absorbs it like he is inhaling some white powder from a table. Everyone mess their pants to see such an astonishing power, and Albus now knows that the Tempest are surely worthy of their delegation. At night, a great feast is arranged where the guests are served some delicious food in the reception hall, and they like it very much. On the other hand, Albus is drinking barrels on barrels of brandy using her thick tail, while Sophia is turned into a cat to drink it. Rimuru asks if Albus is comfortable drinking like this, and she says that it's not her secret. But Rimuru is concerned with the amount of barrels that they have drunk. He tells them that the fruit in the forest is scarce, so they can't make much of it and only use it for guests. Albus tells him that there are fresh and juicy melons and fruits in the animal kingdom, so she will arrange the fruits. Rimuru is happy, but the concerned looks of the demons tell him that the two girls want his water. So, they agree to trade fruits and booze, but this is something that Rimuru doesn't know much about, so he calls the one and only Kobe. Kobe is a merchant and a shop owner in the Tempest Forest and represents all the merchants with experience in the demon castle, so Rimuru hands the trading to him. But the little dog is scared to death. However, Rimuru leaves and the three negotiate while the two demons are a little tipsy. After a couple of days, Sophia and Aldis along with a couple of people left for Eurazania, while some were left behind to learn the tips and melons of the Tempest people. The people from Eurazania are simple and good-mannered in that they were shocked to see hot water coming from the tap when all they used was a heating crystal in the faucet. Grucius, on the hand, is lazy as his leader Phobio ordered him to be useful to the great Rimuru, but all he's doing is playing with his dog. He goes on patrol while Yaum is about to leave when Master Hakaru grabs him to play with his sword. Rimuru visits the academy and he's happy to see that every young lad is working diligently. A couple of days later, Yaum and his buddies depart as well to spread the positive word of the Tempest people, and just after that, the delegation from the Demon Lord's kingdom comes back. Rimuru tells the team that the Knights of Eurazania are remarkable and they are trained by the Demon Lord himself, but the architecture and the craftsmanship are inferior to Tempest. Hearing this, Rigger's father starts crying like a pathetic loser. However, he further explains that one thing that stands above everything is their agriculture. There is a vast land with abundant resources that they have ever seen. Hearing this, Rimuru's next plan is to send the delegation to learn about the agriculture of Eurazania. After that, Rimuru is approached by Benimaru, who asks him if he can place Rigger as the leader of the delegation onwards, as he wants to protect the nation. Rimuru agrees, and Benimaru also tells him that he picked up a fight with the Demon Lord and lost spectacularly. He's just a sick, messed up bastard according to my data. The next day, Rimuru and the squad leave for Dwargon. The party includes Shin, Shuna, Ranga, and a bunch of dwarfs along with a couple of goblins and some special gifts for the king. Rimuru recalls that Shin is even a bigger klutz than Benimaru, since she somehow destroyed the whole palace room when he told her that he was taking Shuna along with him. Along the way, they meet Gled and reward them with beer before finally reaching the kingdom. There they meet Kaido, another dwarf, who is shocked to see Rimuru as he only knows his slime form. Finally, they enter the throne room to meet King Gazel of Dwargo. But in the meantime, we see Clayman spying on Rimuru by blackmailing Mulan. Rimuru and Gazel talk about some business stuff. Rimuru tells him how the dwarfs are doing well in the new kingdom and Vesta is there along with his freaky experiments as well. Suddenly, the happy bastard turns into a serious one, and Gazel asks Rimuru what magic he used to defeat the Charybdis during the war. The magic was so powerful that Rimuru had to tell the truth, so he told them that it was the Demon Lord Milim. Dorf doesn't believe Rimuru, but it's the actual truth. However, Gazel has an eye for facts, so she believes Rimuru. Meanwhile, Shuna arrives with the beer of Tempest. Rimuru tells them that it is a special beer from the kingdom with detoxifying magic. The two men suck the beer and they are amazed to see how tasty it is. Rimuru also chugs a sip when the system removes the alcohol instantly. Rimuru tells them that it is made from a special apple from the animal kingdom, which triggers the two men as they consider the Demon Lord a prideful bastard. They consider him a demon seducer, but still, we haven't seen any plot. Rimuru explains that they are just sending delegations right now, but Dorf and Gazel are concerned that this pace can make Tempest the biggest trade center. The two men then talk about some kingdom and boring mess when Shin disrupts them and she is high as heck. She is drinking beer like there's no tomorrow and suddenly falls. They are embarrassed to see this, but Gazel doesn't mind and the two takes her to her room. Then, Rimuru addresses the nation like a humble person, but it was just a practice, and Gazel tells him that it's too short and he's too humble, so the people will throw mess at him. Rimuru agrees, as he was dumb as heck at his previous job as well. Since the gang is in Dwargon, they can't miss the elf paradise. At night, the goblin gang and Rimuru sneak into the elf paradise without Shin or Shuna noticing, and inside is pure heaven. Milky elf mamas are everywhere and they are so happy to see Rimuru. The goblins, well, they might have some liquid coming from their nose as soon as they are indulged in the beauty of paradise. There, we see the dwarf brothers as well. Gobda shows his feats, but he is so happy to see the melons that he falls with blood coming out of every hole. Rimuru offers some beer to the bartender for free to see how much those are worth in the Dwargon kingdom. The bartender is happy to see a nation filled with different races. Now it's time to head back and all the bastards are tipsy. Rimuru tries to wake up Gobda, but the jerk is cold as ice. Suddenly, Shuna arrives from the darkness with a sinister smile. He is scared to death as Gobzo has told her everything because he can't withstand her seductive nature. To guarantee death, Shin arrives as well, and now everyone is doomed for eternity. Rimuru can't do anything, so he just apologizes and uses his slimy charm to seduce her, and the girls agree with the condition that he will eat Shin's dish for 1 week, which is even more brutal than death. After that, the party was set for home. Meanwhile, Yam arrives in town, where he meets Isaac, who introduces him to his sister Mulan, who is working for Clayman, who is a sick mess. Yam and Mulan then engage in a battle to show how worthy she is, and she beat Yam with ease. Guess he is a thin stick after all. Yam is impressed by her feats, so he agrees to recruit her to their team. The next day, Rimuru goes back to the academy to announce the results of the final exams, and he melts down, making the lads mess their pants, but turns out that all of them passed successfully. This concludes his reign as a teacher, but he promises the students that he will show them the manga he promised that will make them happy. It turns out that these young lads are nerds as well, just like you. After that, Rimuru goes to Tis Sensei and thanks her for taking good care of the lads. Meanwhile, Yam reaches the Tempest land along with Mulan. Yam introduces her to Shuna and Shin. Some preparations are being made to welcome Rimuru for his return, so Shin suggests Mulan take a hot bath with me. Just kidding. Then Yam takes Mulan and the two explore the city. Yam shows her the blacksmith shop, the reception hall, and the market, but she notices a high amount of potions, which makes her think that the nation is a big threat, just like Shin's big melons. Yam then takes her to the training grounds where Hakiru has just finished up Grucius, Gobta, and Gobzo with a bunch of other goblins. Yam introduces Mulan to Grucius, and he thinks that she is just a little sassy girl. He challenges her and agrees to call Yam his boss if he loses, and what can you expect from a pile of doggy mess, got dumped in an instant. Seeing this, Gobda comes up with an idea and thinks that they will use the magical girl to take on Hakiru. So, he provokes the old lad, and Mulan uses her magic, but he vanishes in an instant and beats the living crap. At night, the beat-up jerks take a bath, but Gobda is still determined to defeat the old guy. At the kingdom of Falmouth, the king is anxious as the traders are declining day by day, and they have heard about Yam, the orc dispatcher who is residing in the Tempest Federation. The priest there, Rayheim, tells them that the land of monsters is a potential threat to their god, so they will use this excuse to engage in a holy battle. The old guy suggests using the Otherworlders. The Otherworlders are also from some other world like Rimuru, and they are strong as heck. Shogo is the hothead who thinks that a mere slime is just a waste of time, but he doesn't know that Rimuru can kick his ass with wine. The others are excited to kick some butt as well, but the third guy is a sinister douchebag, so he can be a problem. The next day, Yam is lying in the lap of Mulan after getting his ass kicked by the bastard master. He jokes around saying that he would love to lay like this every day. But Mulan doesn't like the joke, so she tells him to get up, but Yam says that it wasn't a joke, so stay tuned as we can get some plot soon. She calls Yam stupid. In the town, everyone is preparing for Rimuru's arrival when suddenly one of the lizard guys looks strangely at Mulan. Next up, we see the two jerks, Yam and Grucius, practicing with each other, and as soon as Mulan arrives, she is contacted by the demon lord Clayman, who tells him that she is a good servant, so she just has to do one more job and be with the man of her dreams. Mulan is a simp just like you, so she agrees as her heart is controlled by Clayman. In the castle, news just arrives narrating that some armed knights from the Flammoth Kingdom are heading towards Tempest. In the meantime, the three Outworlders from the Flammoth Kingdom arrive in the Tempest, and the three cocky, arrogant bastards are shocked to see that even monsters are living in better conditions compared to them. They don't like the atmosphere here, so they decide to eliminate the wet slime to change the rule. Kurara hatches a plan to try to portray Gobzo as a pervert. She touches him and falls, making it look like monsters are monsters. Everyone is concerned. Gobdo arrives and elevates the situation, saying that Gobzo only likes Shin with her heaven-shaking curves. Everyone starts laughing, but the other worlders don't buy it, so the girl lashes a deadly spell, but the spell doesn't work. Suddenly, Shuna and Shin arrive at the scene and Kurara wets her pants as Shuna scares the mess out of her. The other bastards try to pick up a fight, so Shin takes on Shogo and Gobda takes the other jerk. Meanwhile, Mulan is connected with Clayman, who tells her that her final job is to cut off the communication of the capital to the outside world. She continues to perform her mission when Grucius arrives, and seeing the weird looks on her face, he is concerned that she is being controlled by the demon lord Clayman. So, Mulan reveals her true form and turns into a Majin. But to her ill luck, Yam arrives as well and tells her that he loves her, so he will protect her. Mulan is moved by such words, and Yam don't miss the opportunity to grab her. Grucius doesn't like this grabbing, but Mulan sees this opportunity and starts her final objective. She blasts a barrier, and the Flammoth Knights from the outside cast a prison field on the Tempest that makes them locked inside. Suddenly, Shin feels her power leaving her body, and Shogo is about to knock some sense into her. On the other hand, Rimuru is departing for Tempest. The students start crying, and they don't want their master to leave. So, Rimuru gives them some presents to cheer up the little brats. As Rimuru hops on Ranga and leaves, the students bid him farewell. Ranga and Rimuru travel a couple of miles to teleport back to Temps when suddenly a girl is noticed. Rimuru and Ranga feel it as well, so Ranga goes into Rimuru's shadow. In the meantime, Shui arrives to warn Rimuru, but he can't do much. A barrier is placed between Rimuru and the outside world. Rimuru uses the resistant ability, but it allows only a limited use of magic. Then we see the girl approaching Rimuru. In the Tempest Kingdom, Gobda is bruised and slashed by the freaking bastard, and when he's about to finish him, Master Hakiru arrives. He saves Gobda, but due to the barrier, the moments are slower and he also falls prey to the other worlder. Now, only Shuna and Gobzo left. On the other hand, Shin is getting her ass kicked by Shogo, but she is still giving a tough fight with her weak skills. Just at that moment, the knights from the Flammoth Kingdom arrive, and in the name of law, they start massacring and eliminating the innocent people, turning Tempest into a dungeon. The girl who trapped Rimuru is the captain of the Holy Knights, and her name is Hinata. Rimuru remembers her from Master Shizu, but the little bitch doesn't buy it and she lashes on Rimuru. He tries to sweet talk with her, saying that he's Japanese as well, but nothing is working as the girl only seeks revenge. So, Rimuru pulls out his sword as well, and the two start to fight off each other. Hinata uses a spiritual attack that attacks the spirit of the body instead of physical form, and now Rimuru can only take 3 more attacks like this. They battle each other to death, but now Rimuru has only 1 strike to bear that will eliminate him. Hinata is lost in revenge for her master Shizu. Rimuru senses that Hinata is beyond anything. With no hope, Rimuru summons a superior spirit, but he is of no use as the holy girl has the ability to take control of the spirits as well, just like his gluttony power. Suddenly, Rimuru remembers his gluttony power and tells Hinata that Shizu-sensei just wanted him to save Chloe and the other lads. Hinata also uses her final move, the color whatever sword, and pierces through Rimuru just before he uses his gluttony. Rimuru transformed into a specialized combat form, blending traits from different objects and monsters. Hinata launched a series of powerful attacks, including one that almost eliminated Rimuru with disintegration. Rimuru wasn't throwing down with Hinata, he had distractions to whip up a clone and dip out into the shadows. However, he has some serious doubts, thinking he would have taken the L against Hinata's disintegration move even without the barrier. After the fight, Rimuru tried teleporting back to the Tempest Nation but couldn't because of the barrier. They settled for teleporting nearby, where they met some side characters and explained the situation. The Great Sage breaks down the barrier, pinning it as an anti-magic zone. Kinda like Hinata's, but not as hardcore. Rimuru dispatches to hunt down who's behind the barrier, while he hunts for whoever's throwing around powerful magic. Switching over to Benimaru, who's determined to find and confront Milan for sabotaging their magic. Yam tries to stop him. Rimuru arrives just in time to intervene and agrees to listen to Milan's side of the story. Milan confesses that she's ready to take responsibility for the damage she caused. Rimuru scratches his head at first, so Milan drags him to check out the aftermath of the attack, where a bunch of goblins get wiped out. Milan's trying to stir up some drama, pushing Rimuru to lay the blame solely on her, but he keeps his cool and opts to gather everyone for a powwow instead. After gathering all the details, Rimuru concludes that the Western Holy Church and the Kingdom of Falmouth were in cahoots from the beginning. Nair adds that the Western Church dislikes monsters, and Falmouth wants to monopolize trade. Rimuru asks Mare to go to the Kingdom of Blumen and warn them about the Falmouth's impending threat. Just then Milim confesses to serving the Demon Lord. She explains that Clayman's overall goal is to get the Tempest Nation and the Kingdom of Thalamus to go to war with one another. Rimuru decides to postpone Milim's punishment and instead imprisons her for now. Rimuru is then informed by Benimaru that Shin and Gobzo were both eliminated in the fighting while trying to protect the innocent. No more big melons resting on his little jello head. So, the three heroes spill the beans that, despite being far-fetched, there's some fairy tale floating around about bringing the dead back to life. Then they drop the bomb that the Western Holy Church's troops are all posted up around the city, each guarding some magic gizmo. But enough about that, let's circle back to the revival biz, where Eren starts spinning a yarn about this chick and a dragon. The girl, born of a human-dragon union, was raised as a dragon princess. Her companion, a baby dragon, met a tragic end when the king's attempt to control her resulted in its death. Fueled by vengeance, she seeks retribution against the king and his kingdom, channeling her inner John Wick. After she was done slaughtering tens of thousands of innocent people, she transformed into a true demon. When she had transformed, the baby dragon miraculously came back to life. The tiny drawback to that is the dragon had lost its soul in the process, so when it came back, it was an evil monster that destroyed everything in its path. So, this dragon dude turns into the Chaos Dragon. And get this, when the girl ascends to Demon Lord status, she locks away her old dragon buddy. Rimuru's like, why bother reviving him if he ain't got no soul? Eren's on a roll, though, explaining that the city's still tight in this barrier. She's guessing this barrier's trapping souls from bouncing. It's like a slim 3% shot that this plan pans out. But hey, Shin's got a rack that could stop traffic, so in anime logic, that's basically a surefire 99% success rate. We also find out the fun fact that Eren is Eren Grimwald and is a princess. Woo. After the talk, we learned from the great sage that Rimuru has already acquired the Demon Lord seed. He had acquired the seed when he defeated the Orc disaster in previous moments, so now all he has to do is meet the conditions and he can evolve into a true Demon Lord. The minimum amount of nourishment required to have the seed sprout is around 10,000 human souls. That conveniently segues into Rimuru finding out that the Falmouth forces are marching on the Tempest Nation with 20,000 men. Rimuru comes in and tells Milim that she's gonna have to die, and so she gets up and kisses Yam and is prepared to go willingly. Turns out Rimuru is a prankster to everybody because he was never actually planning on eliminating her, but on the plus side, it was kind of an elaborate wingman, and because Yam did get a kiss, the artificial heart that Clayman gave to Milim to keep her alive was actually a bug. Rimuru pulls a slick move by smashing this thing, letting him peep on her. By wrecking it, Rimuru fools Clayman into thinking Milim's kicked the bucket. Sneaky, right? But Rimuru's not done yet. He whips up an artificial ticker and swaps it in for Milim, keeping her ticking and tossing Clayman's rule out the window. When she's asked what's next now that she's off the leash, she tells them she's gonna tie the knot with Rimuru. Rimuru tells everyone, laying out his plan to wipe out all the Falmouth forces heading their way. He's talking about taking down the king and his whole top brass. Once they're 6 feet under, he's looking for someone to fill the royal shoes. Yam gets the memo that he's the lucky guy in line for the throne. Yep, he's about to be crowned king of Falmouth once Rimuru's done cleaning house. Rimuru lays down the law, declaring he's handling the big guns coming their way, while the rest are tasked with nuking the magic gadgets cooking up those barriers. Shuna and Milim get the gig of slapping up a new barrier once the old ones toast to keep those souls trapped. In the final scenes, everyone's getting ready to play their part, and the plan's locked and loaded. Later on, the big reveal hits, Gabaru and others, they all hit up their spots as planned, wiping out the enemy grunts and smashing those devices to bits. Meanwhile, Geld, Hakiru, and Rigur are on a mission to crash the party where the 3 other worlders are chilling. Geld steps up to face off against Shogo, while Hakiru squares up with Kyoya. Now, Kyoya's got this move called the All-Seeing Eye, which lets him clock every move around him at warp speed, thinking he's got the upper hand. But guess what? Hakiro's still on a whole nother level of speed. He blitzes Kyoya, slicing him up real quick, and as Kyoya's taking his final breaths, he's forced to confront all the grim stuff he's done in his life. Talk about a brutal reality check. But anyway, we're gonna hop back over to Geld and Shagu. Geld uses his Wraith abilities, so Shagu is on the back foot, and as Geld goes to eliminate him, Hakiro appears. He shows Shagu that he had eliminated Kyoya already and that he's next. Shagu, of course, panics and then tries to run off to find who he eliminates to gain this survivor ability. This does nothing. He gets his ass kicked by Geld and then regenerates all the damage he took so he could get his ass kicked again. After dealing with a fair bit of punishment, Geld decides to proceed with his plan. but Ruzin intervenes to stop him. Ruzin prevents the attack and escapes with Shogu using teleportation. They have no choice but to let Ruzin go, as Hekuro reveals he has rigged himself with nuclear strike magic. With all 4 magical devices around the city destroyed, Shuna and Milim replace the barrier with their own. Meanwhile, Rimuru prepares to unleash power and ascend as a true demon lord. Shogo and Ruzin confront each other, with Ruzin claiming he will help Shogo but instead destroys his soul. Ruzin then performs a soul swap, taking over Shogo's body and acquiring his powers. In the final scenes, Rimuru goes on a rampage, accumulating eliminates and nearing a 10,000 soul count. As the army's all gathering up, and then bam, the king's freaking out, thinking about what's gonna happen next. Revenge time kicks in, and here comes Benimaru, strolling up in front of the army like, "Wake your up, before I crisp breezy you." One of the knights spots Benimaru rolling in, then of course, Benimaru's being the annoying person he is, charges in, taking them all out with crazy precision and super speed. In no time, Benimaru efficiently and with much ease gets rid of the entire army and is left standing there alone, surrounded by trees. On the other hand, Gabaru proceeds to take out another army, and at the same time the other party members carry out their assigned tasks and successfully get rid of the remaining armies. Somewhere else, Shogo is seen excited to get into a fight. The useless person explains to Kyoya, another useless person, how his hands are itchy. Kyoya then explains to Shogo that he can understand his temperament. That is when a knight notices some enemy movement coming their way and alerts Shogo and Kyoya. They quickly jump down to confront the incoming enemy. Turns out that the enemy is none other than Hakiru, the old loser, along with his army. Hakiru and his men easily manage to defeat the knights. There, Shogo decides to finally interfere and show off his skills. Geld then volunteers to fight off Shogo with his big-ass armored suit, and their battle begins with Shogo punching right straight through Geld's shield. Meanwhile, Kyoya heads into the forest and bumps into Hakiru, who's been chilling there, waiting. They start hurling some seriously nasty insults at each other, and Kyoya decides to throw the first punch, but Hakiru totally shuts him down. Meanwhile, Geld and Shogo are still duking it out, but Geld's basically invincible, taking no hits at all. Shogo even tries to pull a fast one on Geld, but he ain't falling for it and keeps his guard up like a boss. Shogo then uses all his strength to defeat Geld, but all his attempts are in vain as Geld doesn't even flinch while fighting with Shogo. Geld then uses his rot skill and Shogo begins to get rotten little by little, and it appears to not come to a stop. Soon, Hakiru arrives and throws the decapitated head of Kyoya towards him, prompting him to run from there to save his life. Shogo then goes over to Kiara and proceeds to eliminate her to gain her powers, and succeeds in doing so. After gaining new powers where he can regenerate himself if needed, Shogo begins to get a bit cocky, and since no one likes cocky people, Geld once again volunteers to deal with Shogo on his own. Geld then proceeds to get the better of Shogo in the fight and manages to bring him to the ground, gets on top of him, and punches him repeatedly with no intention of letting him go. Geld then decides to end Shogo's life and continues to swing his machete towards Shogo, which is then countered by Raisin, who has arrived there all of a sudden. Shogo seems to be relieved to see that Raisin is there to save his life. Raisin then provokes Geld, who soon begins to charge towards Raisin but gets stopped by Hakiru. An energy blast occurs and Gled is sent to where he came from, so Raisin's kinda impressed by how Hakiru sniffed out his trap so fast. Hakiru gives him a heads up about facing the wrath of our leader, Great Rimuru, but Raisin really couldn't less. He takes Shogo back home and straight up annihilates his soul. Raisin's got his plan all laid out, and then he busts out this crazy reincarnation move of his. He kicks the bucket in his own body, only to pop up in Shogo's. Next up, King Edamales. Raisin and Fulgen are hauling ass to check on King Edamales, but Raisin can't zap out Falmouth's king thanks to some anti-magic crap in the area. So, Fulgen steps up, saying he'll use his spearhead skill to turn the rest of the soldiers into freaking human shields to get King Edamales the heck out of there. Just as Fulgen's getting ready to roll with his plan, bam, Rimuru puts a bullet in his head. Raisin steps up to confront Rimuru, but before he can even get a word out, Rimuru plugs him too, no questions asked. Rimuru consults with the king and the king proposes formal relations, mentioning that it was the church's fault who declared the kind of Rimuru as their enemies. Moreover, King Edamales lies to Rimuru and mentions that he wanted to talk things out with the demonic realm in the first place, but while he is trying to explain all this, Rimuru grows bored and is uninterested in whatever Edamales is saying. Rimuru then proceeds to shoot off Edamales' arm. After that, Rimuru acquires a new unique skill and uses it to execute the now surrendering soldiers, leaving only the king and the archbishop alive. Out of nowhere, Rimuru starts feeling totally drained, like he can't keep up his human guys anymore. He's spinning, feeling all woozy, and he knows this is the worst possible time for it. So, quick thinking, Rimuru calls up Rangan and tells him to get him home safe and sound, and to snatch up Adamali's and the Archbishop while they're at it, making them prisoners of war. Someone's been playing dead nearby, so Rimuru tells Rangan to sniff out the survivor. Meanwhile, the Word of the Worlds announces that the Harvest Festival to level up Rimuru Tempest into a Demon Lord is kicking off right now. And once the Harvest Festival's done, everyone riding Rimuru's wave is getting hooked up with some sick loot. Shortly after, Ranga rushingly brings Rimuru to the harvest and she is quickly covered in a cloak. There, Benimaru wishes to himself that once Rimuru turns into a demon lord, he hopes that she won't become a different person and lose all control. Soon, the harvest begins and in no time it gets completed. After the harvest, Rimuru transforms from a slime race to a demon slime race. Moreover, Rimuru is now capable of freely changing his material and spiritual bodies. On top of all these, Rimuru gains new skills such as infinite regeneration, universal detect, Lord's ambition, enhanced replication, and universal threat acquisition. The new resistances that Rimuru acquires include natural elemental nullification, ailment nullification, spiritual attack resistance, and holy attack resistance. Most importantly, the Great Sage receives one of these gifts as well, resulting in the birth of the ultimate skill Raphael. Meanwhile, Raisin tries to fight Diablo and thinks that he can easily take him out or at least go head to head with him. However, the dumb loser has no idea what he is getting himself into since Diablo has plans of toying around with Raisin since he is already aware of the fact that Raisin is nothing but a mere piece of mess in front of him. The fight begins and Raisin does everything in his power to try and at least inflict a scratch on Diablo, but Raisin even fails to do that. Raisin then begins to mess his pants when Diablo comes closer to him and Raisin soon passes out. Now that the harvest is wrapped up and Rimuru is waking up the crew, telling them to catch some sleep cause it's gift-giving time. Rimuru then heads over to revive those who bit the dust, but the sage inform that this current body doesn't have enough magic. Then out of nowhere, Diablo rolls in with Raisin, offering up his two sidekicks as magical fuel for Rimuru and manages to pull off the resurrection. Benimaru approaches Rimuru and proposes to come up with a password to test whether or not he has retained her reason after becoming a demon lord. Later, Rimuru awakens and questions if the harvest was successful and immediately receives confirmation. It is then shown that Shin has successfully been reborn and has Rimuru in her lap where Rimuru shows his gladness after seeing Shin alive. Shin then announces in front of everyone that the great Rimuru has succeeded in bringing all of them back to life and has not left a soul behind that needs to be resurrected. Soon, Rimuru gets told by Raphael that everyone seems different to her since everyone who was connected to her received gifts after the harvest which caused them to evolve. Soon, as everything gets settled, Benimaru tries to carry on with his plan of pulling out a not-so-funny joke on Rimuru. He mentions how Rimuru's reason still needs to be tested, and since he already guided Rimuru earlier on what to say, Benimaru believes everything will work fine. Benimari then tells Rimuru the phrase, Shin's cooking is in hopes of Rimuru finishing the sentence. Rimuru then quickly turns to seek help from Raphael who claims that she has answers to all the questions. At first, Raphael tells Rimuru that there is nothing he can do or say now that would save him from Shin, but later suggests something to say. Rimuru proceeds to turn the table and shift all the blame towards Benimaru and reveals to Shin how Benimaru advised him to comment how Shin's cooking tastes like our ex's cooking. This deeply angers Shin to an extent, so much so that she is now hooked on filling Benimaru's belly with the food cooked by her. Soon after everyone leaves, Benimaru explains to Rimuru how something drastic happened in the animal kingdom of Yurazania. Later, Milim Nova declares war on the Beastmaster, the demon Lord Carrion, and mentions that the war will begin in 1 week. Lord Carrion then tells his subordinate to seek the help of Slime to evacuate the citizens and mentions that he will fight alone with Milim and assures that he will emerge victorious. Carrion then asks his 3 subordinates to stay and protect the city while he is away fighting with Milim. Rimuru gets told about the situation as well, and later we see the battle going on between Carrier and Milim. Even though Carrion shows off his beast form, he gets easily defeated when the fight is interrupted by Frey, another demon Lord BH. Rimuru then finds out about the involvement of Frey and soon discovers that she started heading toward demon Lord Clayman's domain along with Milim. This seems a bit strange to Rimuru as she is now skeptical of what could be the reason for this happening. Later, Rimuru is seen with Ranga, who are then soon approached by Diablo. Diablo then gets the worst vibes of being a loser after finding out that Rimuru doesn't even remember him and what he did to help her. Diablo then requests to serve Rimuru, which he accepts, and soon the process of evolution begins, which occupies 10 times more magicules than Rimuru used last time. Rimuru then begins explaining how they are having so many problems, all at the same time. He also gives some tasks for his men to carry out and decides to go visit where Veldora is trapped. As he transforms into a human form, he also proceeds to create a body double for him. Rimuru then wakes Veldora up and he occupies Rimuru's body double to use it as a host. The next day, our hero finds out from the dragon that Faust has been upping his game in the Inquisition, thanks to a little gift. That dragon's already achieved more than you did with your last year's resolutions. With a little help from Lady Luck, Rimuru scored some sweet new abilities like Raphael, Veldora, and even infinite poisoning. He's like that ex who used you, but instead of heartache, he's leveling up with every move, culminating in a brand new power called Uriel. Now, Veldora is all flexing his new muscles and showing off his shiny new body to Rimuru at dusk. They have a heart-to-heart about Veldora's adventures, and it's like watching the birth of a beautiful friendship. Rimuru then takes Veldora out to meet the gang. Everyone knew Veldora was coming back, but they were shocked when they saw him in the flesh. Veldora tells Trainee to keep an eye on Rimuru, making him totally red-faced as Veldora introduces him as his buddy, his other half. Next, we've got Benimaru and Rimuru all hyped up and waiting for Shin to cook. They dig into a meal that looks as appetizing as our ex is cooking, but they chow down anyway. To everyone's surprise, the food actually tastes good, and Shin discovers she's a cooking prodigy. Gabiru gets a promotion to head of development during their next meeting, probably because they figured he couldn't mess things up any worse than before. After that, Rimuru declared that he was a demon lord and would be fighting Clayman. He lays out his strategy, including rescuing demon lord Carrion, cleaning up the kingdom of Falmouth, and controlling the Western Holy Church. Rimuru has appointed the following individuals: Rigard to represent the Western nations in negotiations, Benimaru to interpret the results of everyone's evolutions, Shin to question captives, Yaum and Emjurin to assist Shin, and the 6 Beastketeers to also assist. To face Clayman, he tells them to regain their strength. Out of nowhere, Fuse walks in and informs Rimuru about the bodies he discovered. They are not dead but merely sleeping, and the dim-witted Fuse has no idea. Like a puppy searching for its owner, Fuse assumes everyone is dead when they're simply taking a nap. Fuse, the drama queen, pulls off her classic trick. Then Fuse tells Rimuru about the 50 armed soldiers he's brought to babble the enemies. Still, Rimuru and others reassure him that Rimuru has effectively wiped off the kingdom of Falmouth, and Fuse's rage turns to perplexity. Now, the Dwargon knights, whom they later learn are visiting, are among the guests. One of them, Gazel Dwargon, congratulates Rimuru on becoming a demon lord. When Rimuru mentions that they are discussing the future, Gazel expresses his desire to join him. Brother, it's the same as when our relatives meddle in our affairs. Suddenly, some more men come there. They are from Thalion. One of them, named Irald, informs him that he has made his body using a homunculus while the elves' descendants arrive and mock him. Emerald has an epiphany during the formal introduction. He begins to yell at Rimuru, accusing him of enticing his daughter, and then he unleashes a mighty spell using his abilities. Making a dramatic entrance, Irald accuses Rimuru of wooing his daughter. His daughter arrives just in time to stop him and force him to apologize to the Demon Lord before he can destroy anything. Following a proper introduction, he informs Rimuru that he has come to see him in person and will now be an active participant in the meeting. A vermin named Laplace and a vampire mock duel at Lubelius's inner sanctum Holy Empire on a starry night. Eventually, the vampire attacks the Joker, sending him running. We find Laplace in a room, conversing with someone about the church and how that person has deceived Rimuru. The person is Yuki Kagurazaka. After that, Yuki gives Laplace the go-ahead to keep working because he has transferred his president's soul into an undeniably attractive homunculus. Despite Laplace's laughter as he observes his leader in this starving figure, he eventually goes down to welcome the president. He informs him about the other people waiting for him after receiving a scolding from the president. Kazarium continues by saying that his new body is weak and not his type while they drink tea. Is Kazarium complaining about his changed physique? It seems like someone was demoted. Once again, Laplace finds him amusing, and after Yuki grills him, he reveals that his search operation at the church had started typically with nothing out of the ordinary until he reached the sacred mountain and was attacked by the vampire. Kazarium describes the red beam as the signature attack of the demon Lord Valentine, transforming blood into magic. After that, he starts questioning the act of choosing a vampire to protect and defend humanity. Laplace devises a scheme to remove Valentine from the church with the assistance of other demon lords and Walpurgis so that they can continue their investigation of the church. Veldora shows up at the gathering, showing off his new threads, just as Iren introduces the guests and members of Tempest. Upon learning he is Veldora, Rimuru's new subordinate, every guest is taken aback. As Veldora and Rimuru enjoy quality time together, Gazel expresses his desire to speak with Rimuru. So, the meeting was cancelled due to all these intense moments. Gazel and Irald have gathered in a room to question Rimuru about Veldora, who told them his entire story. Irald informs Rimuru that, technically, his daughter made him a demon lord and that he wishes to have a friendship with Thalion after personally judging him. After a brief discussion, Gazel and Irald agree with Rimuru's decision. The main concern now is establishing Rimuru's relationship with Thalion. After that, they have a conversation about changing the Demon Lord's reality after he eliminated 200,000 men. In the meeting hall, Fuse regains consciousness and they get back to business as usual. Rimuru fills them in on his encounter with Veldora and his reincarnation. After thoroughly examining the Hinata, Rimuru concludes that she will align herself with the church if they denounce her as an enemy of God. When Diablo and Shin decide to confront Hinata, a power struggle ensues. They are interrupted by Rimuru, who then ends the meeting. After revealing that only Eren knows about his eliminating of Shizu-san, he wonders what he is doing now. Now that Ramirez had arrived, they were about to discuss the agenda when he interrupted them again. The statement by Ramirez, "She heard everything, the country Tempest is doomed to fall," shocked everyone. However, Diablo interrupts her mid-sentence. As everyone looks at Ramirez's diminutive stature, they are startled to learn she is a demon lord. Following this, Ramirez begins fabricating tales of her defeat of Dragon Veldora. However, Ramirez passes out after Rimuru entrusts Veldora with his care. At this point in the discussion, Rimuru explains his plan for making his public debut. He devises a false narrative about the Falmouth army's defeat in a war, how the high number of casualties led to a breach of peace, which in turn awakened the dragon Veldora, and how he and Yam collaborated to persuade the dragon to control his anger and recognize him as a protector. Once he finishes, Gazel extols the virtues of this scheme. Among the additional benefits of this scenario that Rimuru outlines are his ability to act quickly, and the fact that everyone will be terrified upon learning about Veldora. Everyone is so grateful to Gazel for coming up with the idea that they refuse to oppose the plan. Yam is proclaimed King of Falmouth by Rimuru, who also decides to free King Admaris and have him pay reparations for invading Tempest, which started the civil war in Falmouth and led to its new development. Yam speaks to everyone and impresses them. Grucius and Mjurin stand up to support him, and Gazel begins to test Yam to see if he is fit to be king. After hearing that Gazel and Rimuru desire to work with him in the agriculture sector, our Yam is appointed King of Falmouth and feels a sense of duty. Faze also stands up in support of Yam and informs everyone how he will get backed by Marquis Muller and Count Herman. Rimuru expresses his strong wish to contact them both right now. A person's nasty chuckle, which sounds more like a horse's, starts up out of nowhere, and everything goes wrong from there. Irald steps forward and demands to know how anyone can accept a monster as the head of the nation. He then explains to Fuse how he would behave in his position. After that, Fuse reveals the truth, saying that he has come to Rimuru's aid with his leader's blessing, but is beginning to regret his decision to take this task. Irald expresses his gratitude to Fuse since he now comprehends Blumen's motives. After hearing Irald's question, Rimuru chills out and tells him he's all about creating a world where everyone can live in freaking peace. Gazel's cool with Rimuru, but Irald's got some question that really gets under Rimuru's skin. Irald hears Rimuru out, then bows down, declaring that he wants to be buddies. His daughter and crew do the same, and Rimuru agrees. They all sign on the dotted line. Rimuru itches to take down Clayman, and we learn at Clayman's crib that he's planning to attack Yurazania. Laplace tells him to watch out for Milim. As night falls, Rimuru reappears, repeating his earlier warning that the storm will fail. She informs Rimuru about the upcoming Walpurgis Feast, which Fuse explains is a gathering of all demon lords to start a war. Still, Rimuru points out that it's just an ordinary gathering when the demon lords sip tea and discuss various topics. She continues by saying that the subject mentioned at Walpurgis is unrelated to the Tempest's demise but is relevant to what will be discussed there. During their conversation, the new leader of the Jura power explains to Rimuru that he will face many challenges in the future but will be able to overcome them with his abilities. So, according to her, this screwed up industry has this unspoken rule where you can basically screw over anyone you please. And the main reason. Lord Carrion's two-faced ass is hosting this damn feast. Once all the pieces are in place, Rimuru finds out that Clayman's on his way to take over the forest of Jura. When Rimuru tells Rimuru he didn't off Mjurin, but she tells him, of course, since Clayman is probably just spewing lies to make himself look good. Rimuru tries to squeeze some info about what the other demon lords are up to, but Rimuru is clueless. The clock's ticking, though, cause the banquet's in 3 days, and that's all the time Rimuru has to take out Clayman. Rimuru jumps on board, saying she's in 2. During a break, everyone hits the damn hot tub, and Irald pitches this idea for a road connecting his nation to Tempest for easier travel. Rimuru's cool with it, as long as they pay tolls for using the roads. At dinner, Rimuru asks Shin about the interrogation team's plan to mess with Tempest on their god's behalf. Shin spills the beans that the Cardinal's cooking up a scheme to do just that. When Rimuru starts considering talking with the Western Holy Church, everyone's like, hell yeah, let's do this. Then, they're all praising Diablo for snagging that messy raisin, the magician from Falmouth. Rimuru decides to send Diablo with Yam to kick off the conflict. So he gets a call from Rimuru, who's like, "What's the deal with Clayman?" Rimuru tells Yamza the ice-wielding, immortal magic swordsman is leading Clayman's army. After some hardcore brainstorming, they figure out Clayman's targeting Urezania, not Tempest. Rimuru puts his detective hat on and figures out Clayman's plan to become a demon overlord by wiping out an entire nation. The three Beastketeers are losing their mess, knowing they've only got 2 days to stop Clayman. Everyone's on edge as Clayman's evil scheme unfolds. According to Raphael, the odds of that rat bastard Clayman's success are 78%, which Raphael points out is way more than pi for some reason. After that, Rimuru declares he's gonna stand up for the Eurasian folks. He tells Benimaru to go kick Clayman's ass, and suddenly everyone's throwing in their 2 cents on the plan. But time's ticking, and they realize they're running out of it. Using Rimuru's proposed transport magic to move such a massive army would be risky as heck. But Rimuru's learned a new trick from Raphael called Control Space, which lets him command a massive army through magic. But his troops believe in him, and he isn't worried about losing. Rimuru effortlessly shows off his new skill, and then decides to take it up a notch. He's gonna confront Clayman face to face at Walpurgis to get the scoop on Milim and himself. He's taking Shin and Ranga with him, while Beretta and Trainee will roll with Ramiris. We now find ourselves in the city of the Forgotten Dragon, where 2 of Milim's subordinates are conversing about the care of bases. They mention that Milim has a written order to destroy Europe. When Yamza approaches them, the older man informs him that they cannot provide him with more food, which angers him. He then demands that they transport their supplies. The boy tries to question him, but he loses an arm. Was Yamza's arm severed simply for posing a question? They are perplexed why Lady Milim has not yet returned, but the older man arrives to rescue him from imminent danger and proceeds to heal his arm. Afterward, Rimuru uses his skill to move people from Europe to Tempest or Eurasia. Tossing armies about like a deck of cards, Rimuru pretends to be a wizard who can transport enemies. After a few days, his army of 20,000 men prepares to confront Clayman. From disruption to their respective destination, Rimuru transports his army with strength. The armies of Rimuru are preparing for combat as if it were the Super Bowl of monster fights. Hopefully, they're supported by more than simply a sense of camaraderie. News of Veldora's return, the desolation of Urezania, and the falsehood that Rimuru concocted find its way to Clayman. He then begins to plot his strategy for defeating Rimuru after deciding to conquer the dragon and use him as a pawn. A stunning woman named Frey is shown in a mansion. During her flashback, she recalls Milim telling her that the weather outside is breathtaking. Showing Frey the new knuckles she received as a gift from her best friend Rimuru, she appears ecstatic. In addition to the pendant, Frey gives Milim a necklace, which she puts on, paralyzing her. The necklace was a trap set by Clayman, who had utilized the magical demon marionette to turn Milim into his puppet. When Frey saw Clayman's trap, he fell for it like a child in a candy store. After that, he promises to make Frey queen of the sky world and warns her not to meddle with him. Returning to the present, Frey is preoccupied with thoughts of the banquet as he stands dumbfounded before Milim. Meanwhile, Leon is at an unknown location where a voice informs Guy Red that Leon has shown up. After Leon rejects Crimson's kiss attempt, the two decide to converse elsewhere. After hearing that Clayman and Milim had summoned the Walpurgis, Crimson convinces Leon to investigate Carrion's elimination, Milim's new behavior, and Clayman's plans in greater detail. Leon agrees. After that, they begin to bring up the fact that Rimuru and Ramiris are demon lords. One of the 4 dragons, Velzard, shows up to listen intently as Leon informs Crimson about Veldora's return. Our witty protagonist, Rimuru, makes up the story Leon tells him, but then they start to think about the other side of the page. Their best guess is that Veldora has gone to hyperspace and used his seal to create someone, most likely the slime. They decide that going to Walpurgis will help them figure out their questions. After that, Leon leaves, but not before telling Crimson that someone, our very own Rimuru, interrupts him whenever he tries to accomplish his goal, gathering young lads from various nations. They can't wait to meet Rimuru at Walpurgis now. When Veldora turns down Leon's request to accompany him to Walpurgis, Crimson asks if she would want to go with him. According to Crimson, significant changes are on the horizon. In the wondrous Great Jura forest, Rimuru decides to play Sorcerer's Apprentice, combining Beretta's holy demonic chaos core with Trainee's soul to make a shiny orb. Ramiris shows up, probably just happy she can finally leave the forest without a chaperone. Rimuru begins getting ready for battle, with Shuna playing the loyal sidekick. Benimaru pops in, acting all confident with his born leader powers, claiming he knows exactly what the enemy's up to. He's so sure they'll nail Clayman that he promises to nab him single-handedly, making Shuna all gung-ho to join the party. Despite the obvious danger, Shuna insists, and after some convincing, Rimuru caves and lets her tag along. Rimuru makes a big show of entrusting Shuna's safety to Benimaru and the gang, making it sound like she's some precious gem. Meanwhile, Benimaru keeps an eye on Clayman's army, chilling with Albus, Sophia, and Phobio, probably plotting their next move over a cup of tea. Albus asks Benimaru for permission to confront the commander, leading him to question if that was their intent in making him the leader. Benimaru, having already planned to send them to face the commander, agrees and allows the three to engage the enemy commander, cautioning them about the influential figures in Clayman's army. As Clayman's army continues its advance, Geld's forces emerge from hiding and use their powers to create a powerful earthquake, causing the ground to collapse beneath Clayman's troops. While some manage to fly out, they are attacked in the air and prevented from escaping back to the surface by Geld and his forces, who then finish them off. Benimaru realizes that victory is within reach and sends his man into battle. Elsewhere, a father and son observe Clayman's army falling into Benimaru's trap. The father remarks that he will handle them himself, seeing Sophia charging towards him. As Yamza and his crew realize their way in over their heads, Yamza tries to summon Clayman's right-hand lackey, but that doesn't work. Instead, he finds everyone around him kicking the bucket, and in walks Albus. They start this epic one-on-one showdown, both thinking they're hot stuff. Albus dodges Yamza's swings and gives it right back, but Yamza's all slippery like a snake. It's a stalemate until Gupta shows up, blocking Yamza's sword like it's sword's play. Yamza, being surprised, Gupta struggles and eventually bails with his crew. Albus, unfazed, gets ready to kick Yamza's sorry self all over again. Gabaru's army is defeated, facing Clayman's forces. However, Tempest's main forces comes back with the milk and attacks Clayman's remaining army. Meanwhile, Sophia battles Midray, who is much stronger and seems to ignore her, frustrating Sophia. Gabaru arrives, witnessing Midray's immense strength. Midray reveals he evolved from a dragon to a human, similar to Gabaru's evolution from a lizard to a human, making his power hard to gauge. They prepare to resume their battle. Albus, the monster warrior, comes face to face with Yamza, Clayman's right-hand lackey and the middle finger of the 5 fingers. Yamza tries to pull a fast one by creating a clone with his fancy bracelet, but Albus ain't having it. She transforms into her ultimate form, showing Yamza who's boss. She smashes his bracelet to pieces, and when he begs for mercy, Clayman tells him to shut up and eat this, and forces him to swallow Charybdis, turning him into a mindless, beefed-up version of himself. Charybdis starts evolving, scaring the living daylights out of everyone on the battlefield. The situation becomes so messed up that even Gabaru and Midray join their 2 forces to defeat Charybdis. Midday asks them to heal each other quickly so Charybdis won't feed on anyone. At the same time, Albus tries to stop Charybdis but fails to do so after realizing that she is not that powerful. Shortly after, Benimaru arrives there and swings his sword, leading Charybdis to cut it into 2. Seeing this tremendous display of power, the entire battlefield is left with their jaws wide open. After Benimaru defeats Yamza, Tempest makes peace with the Dragon Faithful, and Midray is one of them, the people who live in Milim's domain. The moment shifts to Footman and Tears telling Geld and Phobio how they picked a fight with them for nothing. They then mention how they will have to go and inform Clayman about the demise of his army. We then look at Geld and Phobio, who are seen to be badly defeated. Geld is left in disbelief after discovering that Footman and Tears are this powerful. Tears tell Geld that he should be relieved that their orders are not to eliminate them or that the battle would have ended some other way. Hearing this, Phobio becomes infuriated and proceeds to charge towards Tears. In response, Tears begins to charge towards Phobio as well and performs a brutal blow on his stomach. Phobio is sent flying back. Footman goes on the offensive against Geld, but Geld blocks the attack with his shield. Footman decides to tease things up and unleashes an energy blast at Phobio. Quick as lightning, Geld rushes to shield Phobio, but the attack is too much for his shield, and it shatters. Undeterred, Geld stands protectively over Phobio, ready to take whatever comes their way. As the clowns start to overpower them, Geld and Phobio struggle, but the clowns aren't even trying and decides to spare them. Meanwhile, Gabaru and Midray's armies join forces, showing that even in the face of danger, allies stand together. Benimaru, ever the wise one, remarks that Rimuru will have the final say in what goes down next. As Rimuru gets ready for the big showdown at Walpurgis, Shuna and Shin can't help but comment on how dashing he looks. Shuna announces she's heading out, which prompts Rimuru to bug Veldora about the other demon lords. But Veldora's too busy reading manga to care. Rimuru jokingly threatens to spoil the manga for him, which gets Veldora talking about Dino, a demon lord he thinks he can take down easily if they ever cross paths again. Meanwhile, Hekuro and Sawe are on a mission to the puppet kingdom of Justin, Clayman's turf. They run into a Dalman, one of Clayman's undead minions. Shuna, Hekuro, and Sawe gear up for a fight, but Shuna's all confident, saying she can handle herself. A Dalman, being the overconfident undead dude he is, decides to challenge them. Shuna uses her holy magic to wipe out the undead, proving she's not just a pretty face. Seeing this, Adalman is quite surprised, so he decides to get back at Shuna, but Shuna quite efficiently defends every attack thrown at her. Adalman questions Shuna how she knows he can use the holy magic, leading Shuna to reveal that she noticed Adalman wearing the remains of a priest's robes. She shows him that even monsters can wield holy magic, creating a barrier for them to fight in. Impressed by her magic, Adalman asks about her deity. Shuna explains her magic is a manifestation of her respect for someone. As her magic purifies the land, the binding curse on Adalman and the undead breaks. Adalman, desiring to serve Shuna's master, pledges his and the undead army's loyalty to Rimuru. She compares Adalman to Diablo, a fanatic, and clarifies they serve a master named Rimuru, not a god. Adalman eagerly pledges allegiance to Rimuru. He plops down on the chair reserved for the big shots, feeling pretty important. Crimson, radiating with the most aura, plops down right in front of him, probably trying to show off or something. As the other demon lords start to roll in, Rimuru's eyes land on Frey and he's think that she's the hottest demon lord ever. But before he can daydream too much, Shin butts in, snapping him back to reality. Leon strolls in and introduces himself, butting heads with Rimuru. He starts blabbering about Clayman's imminent arrival, trying to spook Rimuru. Just when things couldn't get crazier, Millis shows up, looking like she's been brainwashed by Clayman. Rimuru, feeling all heroic, decides he's gonna take on Clayman himself. During Walpurgis, the maid introduces the demon lords and allows them to present their views. Clayman falsely claims that Carrion influenced Falmouth to attack Tempest, with Milim and Frey only punishing Carrion for creating a demon lord without consent. Clayman calls for Rimuru's destruction. Rimuru refutes Clayman's lies, revealing Emjurin as a witness and presenting evidence of Clayman's manipulation of Falmouth. Clayman tries to frame Rimuru for manipulating events but fails. Rimuru makes the table under Clayman disappear, leading Clayman to accuse Rimuru of violence and breaking the Walpurgis rules. Rimuru then goes on to emphasize how Clayman is the one who broke the rules of the Walpurgis by trying to make him say things without his will. Rimuru then shifts his focus to the other demon lords, mainly Crimson, and asks them if they see what Clayman is trying to do. Seeing this, Clayman mentions how he will have to get his hands dirty now since nothing is going his way, and soon, the head of the Demon Lord Council, Guy Crimson, tells them to fight it out. He wants the matter resolved simply and quickly. Clayman agrees to fight Rimmer one-on-one, but like the coward that he is, Clayman uses Milim as a ploy and mentions that if he wants to fight Rimuru first, then he won't stop her. Crimson agrees to this, and soon Shin arrives and begins punching the mess out of Clayman like he is nothing. Clayman becomes infuriated after witnessing this and proceeds to have Milim fight with Rimuru's subordinates, leaving Rimuru's side unbalanced. Milim begins to fight with Rimuru at first, and Rimuru finds it very difficult to dodge her attacks. However, he refrains from attacking back. Ramira's sidekick, Beretta, decides she wants in on the action and tries to convince Crimson to let her join the fray. At first, Crimson's isn't up for it, but Beretta plays the I've been loyal forever card and Crimson caves, probably just to shut her up. So, Beretta gets the green light to fight for Rimuru, at least for this one time. Meanwhile, Rimuru is busy analyzing Milim, trying to figure out if she's playing for the wrong team. Raphael, the ever-helpful advisor, suggests Rimuru should just absorb Milim's power like it's no big deal. Rimuru goes for it, only to realize it's a total setup by Milim. Just as Milim's about to unleash her fury, Veldora swoops in, ready to throw down. Rimuru, ever the gracious host, asks Veldora what the heck he's doing there, and Veldora, with all the subtlety of a wrecking ball, admits he's there to bug Rimuru for more manga. Rimuru, probably wondering why he's friends with this dragon, is taken aback by the audacity. Not content with just manga talk, Rimuru decides to put Veldora to work and has him go toe-to-toe with the brainwashed Milim. Because, you know, why not add a giant dragon versus powerhouse demon brawl to the mix? In the midst of all this chaos, Rimuru manages to free a fox demon named Kumara from Clayman's clutches and hands her over to Ranga for safekeeping. Because nothing says trusted guardian like a giant wolf. Meanwhile, Beretta goes on a rampage, smashing the puppet Clayman conjured like it's a pinata full of disappointment. She then dramatically pledges her allegiance to Ramiris as if she's auditioning for a role in a fantasy epic. She explains that this was her one shot to fight alongside Rimuru, as if it's the ultimate honor or something. Shin proves to be too powerful for Clayman, mocking his abilities as a demon lord. Clayman, feeling humiliated, transforms into his crazed clown form. Despite this, Shin easily defeats Clayman, exposing his weaknesses and plots. Clayman tries to fight back but is once again defeated by Shin. Shin asks Rimuru if she can eliminate Clayman, but before she can act, Clayman orders Milim to activate her stampede form and attack them. However, Milim reveals that she was never under anyone's control and was playing along the whole time. She explains that they are all her friends, so she has no reason to attack them. Carrion, who was thought to be dead, is revealed to be alive and working with Frey, who was also not on Clayman's side. This revelation angers Clayman further, and he threatens to make them all pay for their betrayal. However, Clayman is severely beaten, injured, and unable to get up, indicating that the tables have turned against him. Kaijen confronts Milim about her actions, and after confirming that she was not under anyone's control, Kaijen acknowledges that building a kingdom is not an easy task. Rimuru promises to help Kaijen build another kingdom and agrees to ally with him. He tells Shin and Kaijen not to interfere as everything is going according to plan. This suggests that he has a larger strategy in place for dealing with Clayman. Clayman, refusing to give up or spill the beans about his boss, begs for more power from his higher-ups. He goes through some sort of weird transformation, becoming a true demon lord. Rimuru reveals that this was his plan all along, to take on a real demon lord. The room lights up like a disco ball because Clayman's aura is so darn bright. And so, the epic showdown between Rimuru and Clayman, both true demon lords, begins. In a frenzied state, teetering on the edge of becoming a true demon lord, Clayman concocts a plan to eliminate Rimuru and secure his own lofty status. The showdown kicks off, and it's clear from the get-go that Rimuru is cruising through the fight. Despite Clayman's best efforts, he's no match for Rimuru, who not only deflects all his attacks but also ends up devouring him, literally showing him what he's made of. Through this decisive victory, Rimuru achieves his long-held goal of clashing with a true demon lord, cementing his own claim to the title. Crimson, witnessing the entire ordeal, recognizes Rimuru's immense power and deems him genuinely worthy of the demon lord accolade. As the dust settles, Rimuru discovers that the moderate Harlequin alliance, of which Clayman was a part, actually served the former demon lord Kazelem. It turns out Leon had killed Kazelem's body to usurp his position. Before meeting his end, Clayman regrets not heeding Laplace's advice sooner, realizing too late that his focus was misplaced. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos, Roy Valentin, who had been skeptical of Rimuru's status, is exposed as a stand-in for the real demon lord Luminous Valentine, the mysterious maid Rimuru had earlier suspected. Forced to abandon her disguise because of Milim's indiscretion, Valentine sends Roy back to the Holy Empire, visibly annoyed at Milim for ruining her stealth. Adding to the tension, when Veldora approaches Valentine, he fails to recognize her, further fueling her frustration. This cascade of revelations and confrontations weaves a complex tapestry of alliances and power plays in the tumultuous Demon Lord saga. Valentine mentions to Veldora that they fought many times. Kaijen and Frey, realizing their weakness, give up their seats as Demon Lords and request to work for Milim, to her initial dismay. They assure Milim that their friendship will remain strong even as they work under her, and she reluctantly accepts. With the group down to 8 members, Veldora suggests Rimuru pick a new name, but Rimuru declines at first. Crimson, sensing the tension, insists that Rimuru choose a name, and Rimuru, understanding the situation, agrees. Rimuru decides to call them the 8-star Demon Lords, Octogram. In the Holy Empire, Laplace is chased off by Hinata, believing the Demon Lord's absence meant a lack of security. Roy returns early from Walpurgis due to Luminous feeling uneasy, and Laplace learns of Clayman's death. Roy mocks Clayman, angering Laplace, who swiftly eliminates Roy by tearing his heart out, leaving him to turn into ashes. Back in Rimuru's homeland, Rimuru is welcomed by Benimaru and the others, who have emerged victorious after a long battle. Rimuru concludes by narrating that he is Rimuru Tempest, and he is a slime. Rimuru's back from the Walpurgis, after schmoozing with the big bad demon lords and showing Clayman who's boss, our slime boy decided to grace Tempest with his gelatinous presence once again. As he struts down the streets, the townspeople can't help but bow down to his majesty, congratulating him on joining the Octogram's elite club of demon lords. Now Diablo, sweeping in with a deep bow and expressing his utmost joy at Rimuru's safe return. The man's been binging telenovelas during his lord's absence. After some gentle reminders to take it easy, Haruna whips out her latest culinary creation, matcha pudding. Now, while she may not be a master chef like Princess Shuna, the girl's definitely leveled up her cooking game. Even Veldora gets a taste, having snitched on Rimuru in exchange for some of the sweet, green treats. Honestly, that dragon's as easy to bribe as a toddler with candy. Shin wastes no time in grilling Diablo about the task Rimuru had assigned him. Turns out, he timed his return to perfection thanks to a little heads up from Veldora. Rimuru, understandably miffed, threatens to cut off Diablo's snack supply as punishment. Hey, sometimes you gotta play hardball with these subordinates. As the gang catches up, Rimuru asks Diablo about the situation in Falmouth, but Miss Shin swiftly reminds him that he's a tea server, not a war correspondent. Diablo, ever the overachiever, insists everything's under control. After all, he did restore the prisoners to their original forms. In a flashback that shows how Falmouth's issue was tackled, we see Diablo transporting the prisoners in a carriage straight out of a horror flick. Poor Maris has been reduced to a lump of flesh, and even healing magic can't fix her up. Diablo had to get a little creative, shall we say. Then there's Raisin, begging Diablo to show King Admaris some mercy. Diablo, being the smooth operator he is, drops some ominous hints about a certain Noir and an even more terrifying demon lord with mind-boggling power. Raisin, realizing he's awakened a slumbering beast, practically throws himself at Diablo's feet, swearing eternal loyalty. The Archbishop and King Admaris quickly follow suit, sensing an opportunity to stay alive. Diablo assures his new servants that as long as they behave, he'll treat them well. But if they even think about betraying him, well, let's just say they might want to invest in a casket. Back in Falmouth, the situation's a hot mess. The royal army's gone poof, and the men are left scratching their heads, wondering what the heck happened. Raisin spins a yarn about battling monsters, awakening a dragon, and getting saved by none other than Rimuru himself. The Archbishop backs him up, adding some juicy details about Veldora's grand entrance and Rimuru's heroic dragon taming skills. Sir Yam steps forward and tries to calm the lords down, reminding them that Rimuru's a friendly guy, unless you know, declare war on his nation and send assassins after him. In the end, the lords have no choice but to submit to Diablo's terms, abdicate the throne, become a vassal state, or continue the war. King Admaris gets a special healing potion and a rude awakening, learning that he'll have to choose between giving up his crown or his life. Diablo, the ultimate power move extraordinaire, demands a whopping 10,000 stellar gold coins as reparations, nearly giving poor Rimuru a spit take while he gives his mission report. But our slime boy needn't worry, Diablo's got it all planned out. With the royal knights gone and the nobles breathing down the king's neck, Admaris will have to abdicate and join forces with Tempest to avoid further conflict. And just like that, Diablo solves the Falmouth crisis with a few well-placed threats and some good old-fashioned intimidation tactics. Who needs diplomacy when you've got a butler with the negotiation skills of a mob boss? It's a rainy evening, and a bunch of clowns are having a pity party. No, seriously, they're all decked out in full clown regalia, complete with frizzy wigs and red noses. The elf, Kigali, in the group is particularly distraught, lamenting the loss of her connection to the dude she called her son. Laplace, looking like a rejected member of the insane clown posse, chimes in, saying he never thought things would end up the way they did. Laplace brags that he's not as dumb as Clayman. Apparently, Clayman got too big for his britches and ignored all the warnings about his weaknesses. Way to kick a guy when he's down, Laplace. The clown crew continues to lament their losses, bases, armies, funds, treasures, the whole shebang. One of them suggests they could still make a comeback, but the elf ain't having it. She's still salty about the slime's sneaky tactics, using the battlefield as a decoy while his minions took out their stronghold. Talk about a sucker punch. Yuki suggests they rethink their plans for world domination. Hugh, on the other hand, wants some good old-fashioned revenge on the slime for ruining Clayman's evil empire. Meanwhile, in the Holy Empire of Lubelius, where true equality means letting gods run the show, we find out that the god in question is none other than the demon lord Luminous Valentine. Hinata, our resident badass, is having some deep thoughts as she strolls through the city streets. Turns out, she's realized she can't rely on anyone but herself, so she's joined the Western Holy Church and climbed the ranks. But as she rose through the ranks, she discovered the church's true nature, a bunch of vampire worshippers. Yep, the Holy Emperor himself is a vampire named Louis, who just so happens to be the twin brother of Demon Lord Roy Valentine. Talk about a family reunion from hell. After a fierce battle against Louis minions, Lady Luminous herself shows up and offers Hinata a chance to prove herself. All she has to do is defeat the 7 luminaries in a week. No biggie, right? Hinata, being the overachiever she is, passes the trial and challenges Lady Luminous again, only to get her butt handed to her. But hey, at least she tried. Turns out, Lady Luminous and her vamp crew don't actually eliminate humans for sustenance. They're more like energy vampires, taking tiny sips of life force here and there. And the happier the human, the tastier the blood, who knew? Of course, Lady Luminous has strict rules about not draining too much energy, because she's all about order and fairness in her nation. Hinata meets up with Louis, who's none too pleased that his brother Roy got eliminated the night before. Someone snuck in and did the deed, leaving the followers shaken and questioning their faith. But hey, at least the great forest of Jura is stable, thanks to Hinata letting the slime Rimuru escape. Louis figures the Western nations will band together to take down the new threat in the forest, and with Roy's death, they've got a perfect common enemy to rally against. Nothing brings people together like a shared hatred of someone else. When Lady Luminous returns and hears the news about Roy's demise, she regrets not being there to revive him. Hinata apologizes for letting the intruder escape. But Lady Luminous is more concerned about the bigger picture, the return of the evil dragon Veldora and the rise of the new demon lord Rimuru. Hinata offers to take down Veldora, but Lady Luminous shoots her down faster than a clay pigeon. Veldora, she explains, is the embodiment of natural energy, a force of nature that can't be stopped by swords or spells. If he goes on a rampage, the whole world is in trouble. As for Rimuru, Lady Luminous advises against making an enemy of him. He just wants to chill and enjoy life in his nation, protecting humans and minding his own business. Unless you mess with his plans, in which case he'll declare you an enemy. So, for now, the plan is to keep an eye on things and hope for the best. In Falmouth, the nobles are having a grand old time debating the terms of Tempest's peace offering. King Admaris tells them they'll have to pay 10,000 stellar gold coins, equivalent to 1,000,000 regular gold coins. The nobles nearly faint at the thought of dipping into their national treasury for that kind of cash. But wait, there's more. A letter arrives from the Kingdom of Bluemund, condemning Falmouth's actions and siding with Tempest. The nobles are sweating bullets, knowing that if the armed nation of Dwargon joins in, they're really in trouble. Just when they think it can't get any worse, news comes in that Rimuru has declared himself a demon lord. Clayman is dead, and the octagram is a thing now. King Admaris, realizing he's holding a losing hand, decides to abdicate and recommend Edward as his successor. And just like that, the great historical kingdom of Falmouth and the Jura Tempest Federation bury the hatchet and become besties, with Falmouth officially recognizing Tempest as a nation. Who knew a few clowns in a slime could cause such a ruckus? The scene opens with Rimuru, our gelatinous overlord, asking about the whereabouts of Hakuna, his right-hand man. Benimaru explains that Hakuna is off handling the post-war cleanup, divvying up the spoils from Clayman's castle and keeping an eye on the freshly captured war prisoners. Rimuru then turns to Benimaru and asks why he's still hanging around. But Benimaru ain't having none of that. With the war over, he hung up his general hat and handed the reins to his trusted aide. After all, why stick their noses in when they can leave the dirty work to the Beastketeers? Speaking of the Beastketeers, Rimuru inquires about the whereabouts of Gabaru. Benimaru tells them Lady Milim went a little too wild and practically obliterated the capital of Eurazania, but Rimuru's got it covered. The refugees and prisoners are all shacking up in Tempest, just in different locations to avoid any awkward run-ins at the water cooler. As for the lycanthropes, they're keen on learning Tempest's sweet tech, so they'll be working under Geld's supervision to develop the land that was once Eurazania. Benimaru warns that some Majin prisoners are also coming along for the ride. But rest assured, they'll be under tight guard. Fast forward a few days, and Diablo is reporting to Rimuru that the negotiations with Falmouth have gone swimmingly. They've even scored 1,500 stellar gold coins as the first installment of their reparations. Rimuru's pleasantly surprised, but Diablo's not done yet. Turns out, the majority of the payment came straight from King Admaris' personal piggy bank. With no knights to protect the royal family, the nobles had no choice but to force the ex-king to take out a loan for the remainder. Talk about a raw deal. Rimuru's got a plan. He knows that if the new king tries to abandon Admaris, Yaum and his crew will be there to keep him in line. And if the king gets any funny ideas about dishonesty, well, let's just say there might be a revolt brewing. Rimuru then instructs Diablo to keep a close eye on things but also ensure that the ordinary citizens don't suffer. And if funds run low, Diablo can dip into the stellar gold coins. But Diablo replies that it won't be necessary. However, he does request permission to throw down if necessary. Rimuru, being the wise leader he is, decides to arrange a combat force for Diablo instead, telling him to keep a low profile. Satisfied with Diablo's report, Rimuru turns to Shin and tells her to take a page out of Diablo's book. Diablo then tells them the Western Holy Church is trying to get in touch with Rahim to learn more about the Falmouth battle. Diablo suggests sending Rahim with a message crystal so they can watch the church's reaction. Just then, a messenger bursts in, announcing the arrival of the refugees and prisoners. Rimuru heads out to greet them, meeting Albus and Sufia, who thank him for letting their people crash at Tempest. When Rimuru asks about Phobio's whereabouts, they explain that he's keeping an eye on the remaining prisoners to prevent any Majin uprisings. Rimuru assures his guests that temporary housing is all sorted, and they're working on distributing jobs. Cue Gabaru's grand entrance, greeting the Demon Lord and handing over a note from Milim. In the letter, Milim requests that Rimuru teach her new crew about the wonders of cooking, as the Dragon Faithful have been living on a strictly raw diet. Shin suggests that Milim could just order them to cook, but Rimuru knows better. Our girl Milim is a softie at heart. So, it's decided, Tempest will roll out the red carpet and show them some real hospitality. Fast forward another month, and it seems like the new guests have settled in nicely. That's when Geld-san arrives, looking like he just went 10 rounds with a pack of angry orcs. Rimuru demands to know what happened, and Geld spills the beans. Organizing the prisoners has been a nightmare. High orcs can communicate telepathically, but that doesn't fly with the lycanthropes and Majin. Some imagine are straight up refusing orders, and even the ones willing to work aren't exactly productive. Rimuru reminds Geld that managing people ain't easy, it's like herding cats. And in times like these, there's only one solution: drinks on the boss. That night, Rimuru and Geld hit up the bar, downing strong drinks served by the lovely trainee Sam. The next day, as Rimuru strolls through Tempest with Shin, a fellow comes running with some exciting news: the merchants are back. With fuse safe and sound, more traders than ever are passing through. But that's not all. The Empress of the Sorceress Dynasty of Thalion, Elmesia Elru Thalion, has declared that she'll establish diplomatic relations with Tempest. Fuse reports that this has many nations concerned. And who can blame them? Tempest is quickly becoming the hottest spot in town. Later, Rimuru learns that the Great Forest of Jura, which falls under his jurisdiction, borders the Kusha Mountains, home to the elusive Tengu village, according to local gossip. Benimaru volunteers to check it out, reasoning that a demon lord strolling in might raise a few too many eyebrows. As the discussions continue, Shuna can't help but notice Benimaru's sudden closeness to Albus. But our Benimaru insists it's just a misunderstanding. Winking slyly, Rimuru dismisses them with plans to reconvene the next morning. The following day, Hakuro reports on the puppet nation of Distave, formerly under Clayman's rule. The Dark Elves who maintain the castle have sworn loyalty to Rimuru, claiming that an elven kingdom once stood on those lands. They call themselves Gravekeepers, and Clayman's wealth might have come from artifacts he dug up there. Hakuro mentions that only a few ruins have been found, but Rimuru decides to keep it under wraps for now. He wants to see the place for himself before making any decisions. Finally, Rimuru gathers all the lords and demons to announce that, as the new demon lord, his domain will encompass the entire forest of Jura. Benimaru reminds him that the area across the river isn't under the Dryad's influence, so the emergence of a new demon lord might ruffle a few feathers. Gabaru chimes in, saying that even the Lizardmen would give anything to be under Rimuru's protection. After some thought, Rimuru suggests throwing a big announcement party to let the world know about their bustling city in hopes of attracting new citizens. The council members unanimously agree, because who doesn't love a good party? Rimuru Tempest holds a meeting with the crew and begins by informing them that the festival idea will be put on hold. So he is asked about the changes he noticed in the monster ecosystem, and he replies by saying that the team who went with him to investigate found nothing of serious concern. However, he adds that he eliminated a sword grizzly in the northwestern region of the forest, but says that it is just a minor issue, even as Gobta argues that the sword grizzly is quite dangerous. Rimuru acknowledges that the real problem is the occurrence of monsters and that they need to deliberate on ways to handle them. There is a suggestion from Vesta that an anti-magic barrier be set up, as Kaijen informs Rimuru that they just finished setting up a fully automatic magic generator prototype. Rimuru is impressed by the fact that it was done within a very short period. The team gathers to see the newly developed magic generator, which they would use to put up an anti-magic barrier. Kaijen tells Rimuru that the anti-magic barrier isn't the only advantage of the device, adding that the device is capable of bringing down the amount of magicules in the atmosphere. Rimuru is even more thrilled as more advantages of this device are being explained, as well as how it is going to be used to their advantage, and notes that the device is easy to use and is also pretty versatile. Rimuru then approves that the device be installed. The team meets again as Rimuru hands out the task of being in charge of the construction of the castle to Geld, adding that he believes Geld would make it magnificent. Geld hesitates a bit to accept the tasks, but Kaijen cuts in, saying that he and Mid would assist Geld with the task. Geld is worried that he might not do so well as the task is immense, but Rimuru assures him that he would do just fine, adding that they can always make up for any mishaps. Gobta agrees, and mistakenly spills out the fact that he had made a mistake himself not long ago, and Rimuru orders that Gobta report to his office and explain himself afterwards. Before Rimuru dismisses them all, he asks Diablo to report the progress of his plan and is confident that it won't fail so long as the Western Holy Church doesn't do anything. Shuna reminds them of the time when Rimuru was battling with Hinata the Saint while they were being attacked, saying that both events were definitely connected and someone was definitely behind all of it. They decide that whoever it was should not be overlooked, and Rimuru agrees, adding that if the said person ends up playing a part in the battle, Hinata might make a move as well. Rimuru isn't very convinced and asks as he considers the possibility of Hinata being ordered by someone to attack him. Rimuru adds that Hinata is not the type of person that would take orders from anyone, and Kaijen agrees, adding that the only person Hinata might listen to is the god Luminous. They deliberate and agree on the fact that it was unlikely that Hinata might have taken orders from the unknown person. Rimuru also adds that Hinata isn't dumb enough to antagonize Tempest and believes she launched her attack for some other reason, maybe because the Western Holy Church does not acknowledge coexistence with with monsters. After some thought, Rimuru figures out and tells them that there might be more than one mastermind behind the attacks. Diablo then asks if he thinks the unknown person is conspiring with them, and Rimuru answers, saying that it would be dangerous to act based on assumptions as they have very little information. Diablo decides that he will conduct one more investigation, mentioning that he was told that the merchants gave information to Admaris and the others. Rimuru again considers the possibility as the merchants might be looking to make profits behind the scenes and instructs Shuna to check the ledgers recovered from Layman's castle. He also asks Diablo to look into all merchants who have done business with Falmouth. Benimaru is asked to rescreen their reinforcements and make sure they're ready for anything. Rigord is asked to get everything ready for the grand festival which they would throw. Rigor is asked to review the city's security measures, and with the tasks being given out, the executive meeting is concluded. At the meeting venue of Rimuru's opponents, Hinata arrives late and Sar verbally attacks her for it, calling her a loser not until some others intervene on Hinata's behalf. Hinata finally responds to Sar's abuses, saying to him that she would give up her position for him if that is what he wants, but she would test his skills first. This time, Sar does not push further but only hisses. A report about the great forest of Jura is brought up by an informant who adds that many merchants have been seen entering and leaving the monster nation, which has progressed more than expected. The informant, a female, goes on to say that it seems Rimuru's desire to establish friendly relations with humans is genuine. Hinata asks her about Veldora and she responds, informing Hinata that entry into the sealed cave is forbidden, so she could not confirm his presence. The meeting continues as Hinata calls for more reports and it gets to Sar's turn. Sar reports that King Edmure has abdicated the throne and adds that the abdication happened peacefully. He goes on to inform Hinata that Edward, the new king, is gathering a lot of talented mercenaries, causing the nobles to panic. Sar adds that he suspects all these happenings to be signs of an imminent civil war. He also lets Hinata know that the information gathered is not enough to determine if Rimuru is involved, but adds that he figured out that the new king was in contact with the leader of the council, the top brass of the Free Union, and merchants from the east. Hinata is particularly interested in the king's contact with the merchants and asks if these merchants were engaging in suspicious activities. Glenda and is asked if she heard anything about the merchants from the east, and she responds, saying that she heard nothing fishy, also adding that she would look into it again if Hinata is still concerned. Hinata instructs that on no account should anyone initiate any aggression with Rimuru, as that was what the oracle had said, which makes some others a bit triggered as they are against the idea of letting a demon lord have his way with a human territory. Hinata stresses that whatever Rimuru does should be overlooked, as there is no reason to take hostile action since it is likely that he already sees them as enemies. She gives the reassurance that Rimuru does not intend to fight them, as he is trying to avoid any form of conflict. Hinata adds that she is thinking of talking with Rimuru and might even go as far as apologizing if necessary. As they continue their deliberations, Rahim, the Archbishop of Falmouth, arrives and walks in. He introduces himself, saying that he is there in response to their summons. Hinata proceeds to tell him that she wishes to know the details of Veldora's return, but before Rahim responds, 3 members of the 7 luminaries appear before them. Sar, as usual, who doesn't know who they are, casually asks, and after he is told, he alongside everyone in the room realizes and stands up as a sign of respect. Hinata goes on to tell them more about the 7 luminaries and afterwards asks the 3 luminaries of their mission there. One of the luminaries responds, saying that they are also interested in the information that the Archbishop has come to reveal. The Archbishop relates the information about the Demon Lord, emphasizing the chaos he caused. Sar is furious because they had been instructed earlier to overlook whatever the Demon Lord does, but on hearing this information from the Archbishop, he now thinks it would be too dangerous. The room is divided as some believe there is no need to attack the Demon Lord while others believe he is a clear threat. The Archbishop also delivers a message from Rimuru which said that he wants to battle Hinata one-on-one. Hinata agrees to go even as everyone else considers it too dangerous. The 3 luminaries also inform her of the dangers and grant her the Dragon Buster Sword, saying they expect her to be successful. Rimuru gets a report of Hinata headed their way alongside 4 holy knights. The informant, Soka, also adds that it is unlikely that she is just coming to talk as she carries a large sword. Diablo appears and informs Rimuru of Rahim's death, adding that he suspects that he was eliminated. Zoe again informs Rimuru that a group of 5 including Hinata, the Holy Knight Captain, are headed for Tempest. He emphasizes the fact that they seem to be of superior abilities as they manage to evade Soka's tracking. Zoe also informs Rimuru about the Temple Knights from the surrounding nations headed towards Falmouth to slay the demon who eliminated the Archbishop. He adds that the demon who is providing Sir Yam's backing is that very killer. Diablo immediately regrets sending Rahim out as a messenger. Shin tries to blame Diablo for making the mistake, but Rimuru scolds her and tells Diablo that the important thing is how one bounces back from a mistake, urging him to take responsibility for his mistake and carry out the plan as they had discussed already. Shuna suggests to Rimuru that they talk to Adalman since he was a high-ranking priest in the Luminist cult. Gabaru also adds that Adalman is currently at work in the sealed cave, saying that he would use thought communication to get to him immediately. Adalman arrives and expresses his appreciation to be in their midst. Rimuru cuts him short as his word of thanks is just too long. Shuna tells Adalman that they don't have much time and urges him to go straight to the point. Adalman starts by saying that he once served as a cardinal in the Western Holy Church. He proceeds to tell Rimuru that the Holy Empire Lubilius is a religious nation that has established Luminous as its god, and that the nation is run by a group called the Imperial Agency. Adalman adds that when he was there, the Western Holy Church was only just a branch of the Imperial Agency, further saying that the Western Holy Church's only goal is to proselytize Luminism. Adalman also talks about the Master Rooks, formed when friction began to rise between Lubilius and other countries. He adds that the situation in Lubilius changed and they gained a new military force called the Crusaders, increasing the power of the church. Adalman believes the 7 luminaries were the cause of all of it, as their authority was second only to the cloistered emperors. Adalman is asked about the 4 other people accompanying Hinata, and he says that it's likely that they are members of the 10 great saints. He asks that he be allowed to remonstrate with Hinata, but Rimuru says no. Afterward, they plan and strategize countermeasures as they have now gotten some important information from Adalman. Roles are handed out and the next issue is Hinata and her crew. So he informs Rimuru that Hokuso, who was watching the kingdom of Ingracia, reported that 100 mounted troops just departed and were also headed for their location. Rimuru is a bit worried about the whole situation but decides that they should all do their best to avoid any deaths among the Holy Knights. Shin suggests that they take on the Crusaders with her Yamagiri team, but Rimuru rages at her, saying that her team is of a much lower rank and skill. However, Benimaru thinks her plan could work as the Yamagiri members have extra skills, which means that it is unlikely that normal attacks would eliminate them. Rimuru asks Soi if there are other dangerous members of the Holy Knights apart from Hinata, and he informs her that they are all above rank but none of them seem to have a massive presence. As Rimuru is still giving out roles, Albus and Sophia burst into the room, with Albus asking that Rimuru allow them to help in the battle as well. Rimuru agrees and gives out the final pieces of instructions before dismissing the meeting. Granville discusses his evil plans with Demrata, the arms dealer, and other cabinet members. Demrata mentions to Granville that they should control the economy of the West together after the Empire takes over, but Granville rebukes him. At the same moment, Glenda takes out her gun and points it at Demrata for making such a statement, but Granville orders her to stand down and they proceed to discuss their plans again, which include taking out the demon working behind the scenes in the kingdom of Falmouth. Hinata, Sakaguchi, and the 4 Holy Knights arrive at the kingdom of Blumund and they set off to explore the place. They notice that its inhabitants move about happily and the place is even more developed. They stop by at a restaurant to eat, and as they are served ramen, Hinata tastes and is impressed by how rich the pork is. The others, however, have no clue of what is in front of them, but seeing that Hinata is enjoying her food, they decide to join in too and are also even more impressed by its taste. Hinata believes that Rimuru had recreated the flavors of their old world. A plate of gyoza is brought to their table, and just like the other food, it tastes so awesome, so they decide to order more as they finish the ones brought to them initially. Unfortunately, the waitress informs them that the restaurant has run out of gyoza and adds that the meal was a new product sold to them wholesale by Demon Lord Rimuru. Afterward, they pass through the great forest of Jura as they get closer to Tempest. The forest usually turns away human invaders, but the travelers notice that nothing has happened as they go through the path. They believe anti-magic barriers had been set up there to ensure safe travel. The travelers stop nearby to camp for the night, and as they have dinner, they discuss how competent the Demon Lord is, seeing the state of the road which they pass through. Arnaud acknowledges the fact that Rimuru is more than just a Demon Lord, but a good ruler, and they hope he does accept their captain's apology. Hinata wonders why Rimuru wishes for a coexistence of monsters and humans and is even more confused as to why he called for a one-on-one fight. So he reports to Rimuru that Hinata and her group would arrive by evening. Benimaru is also present as they discuss the possibility of Hinata using herself as a decoy while the knights launch an attack on them. Rimuru also does not rule out that possibility but still decides to be positive. Renard calls out orders to the assembled knights. He orders that a siege be initiated and adds that henceforth, each unit must deploy to its assigned post. The troop moves to carry out the order, but almost immediately, they are ambushed by Shin's Yamagiri team and intense combat ensues between both troops. Rimuru gets ready to face Hinata and instructs Albus and Sophia to help the Yamagiri team in the fight, as the Crusaders might be too powerful for them. Rimuru arrives at the battle scene with Albus, Sufia, Benimaru, and Zoe, and is surprised to find out that the Yamagiri team did a good job of wiping out almost half of the enemy troops, even though the order was for them to slow the knights down. Hinata Sakaguchi and her team also arrive at the chaotic scene, and they cannot believe their eyes as they notice that the Crusaders are being pushed back by the Yamagiri team. Hinata is furious as she thinks that a negotiation would not stop the hostility that had already begun. Hinata and her team are even more stunned as they see Rimuru's team alongside Rimuru a few yards away from the battle scene. Hinata now believes Rimuru was there with a team to match her team, and then concludes that if Rimuru wants to go one-on-one with her, then she would do just that. Rimuru, on the other hand, is pissed at Shin as the plan was never to cause this much chaos. Hinata Sakaguchi then makes her way down to the battleground and stands face to face with Rimuru Tempest. Troubles brewing in the vampire nation of Lubelius. Louis bursts into Lady Luminous's chambers with some juicy gossip. Hinata has gone rogue and taken matters into her own hands when it comes to dealing with Demon Lord Rimuru. But before Louis can spill all the tea, Gunther swaggers in and tells Lady Luminous not to worry her pretty little head about such trivial matters. Louis, not one to be easily dismissed, insists they could lose Hinata if they don't intervene. But Gunther ain't having it, declaring it's nonsense to trouble themselves with the imprudence of humans. Louis fires back, claiming he's only there to offer advice. Lady Luminous shushes the bickering duo and leads them out. Meanwhile, a full-blown rumble is unfolding between Rimuru's crew and the Holy Knights of the Western Church. Just when things are getting heated, Shin comes swinging in like a wrecking ball, her powerful aura leaving the knights slack-jawed. Girl knows how to make an entrance. Shin wastes no time introducing herself as Rimuru's #1 secretary and relays her boss's message: surrender or face the consequences. The knight in charge, Renard, ain't having any of that talk, though, and orders his crew to activate the holy field. Somewhere nearby, Rimuru and his gang are having a chat with Hinata, reminding her that any military action in his domain will be seen as hostile. Hinata, however, claims she had no idea her second-in-command Renard went rogue and violated orders. Rimuru's not buying it, especially after Hinata's people eliminated Rahim and tried to frame his crew. Hinata plays the innocent card, but Rimuru insists he wants her to call off her goons and send them packing before things get ugly. But the knights have other plans and start unleashing holy cannons at Shin. Big mistake, fellas. Shin swats those suckers away like they're nothing, leaving the knights gobsmacked. Holy cannons are supposed to be an instant monster fatality, but Shin just batted them back like it was a game of tennis. As Hinata and Rimuru throw down, our girl realizes Rimuru's skills have leveled up massively since their last tango. Homeboy's now on par with Lady Luminous herself. Hinata decides to go all in, transforming into her ultimate form with some fancy holy armaments. It's a straight-up power struggle now. Rimuru, caught off guard by Hinata's sudden glow-up, wishes he'd asked Kurobe to hook him up with a special sword. But he's gotta roll with the punches, so he whips out his substitute and gets ready to rumble. Back at the night brawl, Shin offers the gents a chance to surrender while she's feeling generous. But one knight, clearly lacking some manners, yells that holy knights don't negotiate with monsters. Big mistake, buddy. Shin flicks her finger and the poor sap's right ear takes a beating. The other knights, realizing they're outmatched, start listening to Shin's proposal. They hit her with their best shot, and if she withstands it, they surrender peacefully. The knights gather their power and unleash a massive inferno flame at Shin. She slices it in two like a hot knife through butter. The dude named Guard, sporting a freshly broken ear, knows they're outmatched but stubbornly refuses to give up. That is, until Shin jumps up and shatters the holy field, forcing the knights to drop their weapons and surrender. But the real showdown is between Hinata and Rimuru. As they clash, Hinata reminisces about her training days with Shizu sensei, and how she left out of fear of losing her mentor. Their battle is a relentless dance of techniques, with Rimuru suddenly gaining the upper hand and predicting Hinata's every move. Shin and the surrendered knights arrive just in time to witness the climax. Hinata proposes one last round, and Rimuru agrees on the condition that she leaves his country alone if she loses. Hinata summons the power of the Holy Spirit, but Rimuru deflects her attack, leaving her on the losing end. Hinata admits defeat and promises to back off, but then something bizarre happens. Her sword comes to life and aims straight for Rimuru. Hinata, being the hero we didn't know we needed, takes the hit herself, the blade piercing her heart.